Gate 5, Chapter 1. Free will. The Torah and the commandment, whether they are divine or ethical, social or political, are based on the concept of free will in human beings. Confession and remorse, joy of the soul, and its sadness over our actions, whether good or bad, are faithful witnesses to the existence of free will in a person. Without it, there is no Torah and no commandment, no moral conscience, no confession or pangs of conscience, no joy and no sadness. Recent philosophers claim there are laws of existence, and humanity is dependent on and conditioned by them. Existence is full of contradictions. Its contradictions are its very life, and man stands in a battle, a world war, with no peace in his world. His will is torn, his actions are fragmented. Everything happens by necessity, the necessity of contradictions, the conditions of things, the laws of development by logical and historical necessity. Man and his values, his morality and righteousness, are subject to the laws of intellectual development, bound to things, their connections, and their laws. Others say, people see themselves as having free choice, since they are aware of their desires and inclinations, yet they do not even dream of considering the causes that led to these desires and inclinations, because they are unaware of them. The decisions of the soul are nothing more than the inclinations themselves, and therefore they differ according to the various characteristics of the body. Every person conducts his actions according to the impulses within him. One who is attacked by conflicting impulses does not know what he wants, while one who has no impulse at all is swayed by every minor influence in any direction. Anyone who believes that he speaks or is silent or does anything out of free decision of his soul is like someone who is asleep with his eyes open. Ibid. Comment on their statement. All our actions are determined by changes in temperament or changes in thoughts. No person controls the temperament he received from the beginning, and thought too is known not to be free. So we are utterly foolish if we claim to have free choice. S.D. Lozado, Studies in Judaism, Vol. 1, Part 2, Bibliotheca Tevuna, p. 116. But those who are faithful say, free will in humans is something that is felt and recognized. A person's awareness of his free choice is beyond all doubt, and no proof in the world can refute it. Anyone who denies his free choice is closing his eyes to the truth, deceiving himself with illusions and false proofs, like a sighted person who closes his eyes and is struck blind. Indeed, there are laws of nature in existence, laws of historical development, compelling causes, and necessary consequences that rule over existence and humanity. But human choice overcomes all, conquers the laws of nature, frees itself from the conditions of necessity, and creates its own world. A person, by his very nature, is a vessel for absorbing his impulses through his intellect. He overcomes emotion, and through it creates knowledge and thought, giving them a firm stance and a stable direction for all his actions and deeds. We do not deny, nor can we deny, the awareness of our free choice, which is the essence of our humanity. Without choice, not only are we unworthy of the name human, but we become like one of the animals, mere tools in the hands of the laws of nature and their causes, subject to the necessary conditions of things outside ourselves. Is it worthwhile to live such a life, which is but a deceptive illusion, where our entire existence is nothing but an accessory to the blind laws and causes of nature? And if you are wise of heart, open your ears like a funnel and listen to the words of our sages of blessed memory. A poor person, a rich person, and a wicked person come for judgment. To the poor person they say, why did you not engage in Torah study? If he says, I was poor and preoccupied with earning a living, they say to him, were you any poorer than Hillel? To the rich person they say, why did you not engage in Torah study? If he says, I was rich and busy with my possessions, they say to him, were you any richer than Rabbi Elazar? To the wicked person they say, why did you not engage in Torah study? If he says, I was handsome and preoccupied with my desires, they say to him, were you more handsome and troubled by desire than Joseph? The Talmud has the version, was he more handsome than Joseph? And in Ein Yaakov, was he more troubled by his desire? Both versions combine into one. Thus, Hillel obligates the poor, Rabbi Elazar ben Sharsam obligates the rich, and Joseph obligates the wicked. A person's actions are influenced by external circumstances, poverty or wealth. Poverty can drive a person to lose his mind, and wealth can produce arrogance and pride. As it is written, Jeshurun grew fat and kicked. Sometimes, due to psychological factors, a person is forced to act against his will, or he is preoccupied with his desire, and to this is added temptation and enticement by what he sees, or the counsel of sinners, or submission to a seducing or threatening foreign power. These causes may seem stronger than a person's own strength and may appear to deny his free choice and justify his actions. But in truth, individuals who are complete in their actions testify that human choice and wisdom overcome all these causes and hold a person accountable for his actions. In this matter, we do not heed the arguments of philosophers, for our souls oppose them with all their might. The awareness of the soul is great. It decides, decrees, and cuts sharply and incisively, and with its power, It scatters all false and illusory proofs to the wind. In such matters, we do not heed even a prophet. And like Hezekiah in his time, we say, end your prophecy and leave. Just as medical science, in all its breadth and prophetic visions, even in their essential truth, cannot cause us to despair of hope or prevent our outpouring in prayer to the Almighty. Even when we are in dire straits or on the verge of death, so too does our soul cry out in supplication and appeal to the God of the universe, and we are answered in our prayers, even after a final decree, if we are worthy. We do not heed any argument that denies our free choice, whose existence we recognize and feel in our very being and in every step of our lives. Gate 5, Chapter 2. Determinism and Indeterminism. We recognize and feel, in every fiber of our perception and in all our intellectual and rational capacities, our absolute free choice. Nevertheless, we are not exempt from examining this question from all its angles to reach its depths. This question, which is one of the most fundamental problems in the philosophy of law, ethics, and society, has occupied all recent philosophers and has placed them in two opposing and debating camps, known as the doctrines of determinism and indeterminism. The early authorities present their arguments as follows. A. It is an observable fact that before we make a decision, we feel within ourselves the possibility to choose between one decision or another, and even to oppose it. After the decision, we are certain that we had such a choice. B. Neither the person himself nor those around him can predict or foresee in advance which action the will shall decide upon. C. Social and governmental law recognizes that individual responsibility for one's actions rests upon his shoulders, and he is punished for his deeds in court. The principle of justice, therefore, requires us to assume that all our decisions are made with the free choice of the individual, and that he is in control of himself. In contrast, others also bring arguments and proofs, saying, the workings of the soul are subject to the law of causality. Every person becomes what he is through the talents with which he was endowed from birth, through his upbringing, and through the influence he received from the environment in which he grew up. If it were possible for the intellect to survey all these factors at once, we would also be able to take them into account and predict in advance the decisions and actions of any person, just as we can predict the movements of celestial bodies. On the other hand, recent philosophers determined the foundation of free choice from the following perspectives. A. From the psychological standpoint, as long as all our mental faculties are with us, after calmly reflecting on the matter before us, we make a decision and feel ourselves to be completely free. Conversely, if we are under external pressure, or if our soul longs for a conflicting desire, or if some foreign force acts within us, we feel compelled and not free. When the function of will develops from a hidden yearning and aspiration in the heart to the level of a clear, manifest, and conscious will, we feel in every action that comes from us this psychological freedom. The more developed our intellect, the more numerous the considerations and judgments ready to serve our will, the freer and more autonomous the will becomes. B. From the ethical perspective, all moral systems and the definitions of penal law are based on the assumption that a person, when fully in control of his mental faculties, is capable of acting freely according to his own judgment. C. From the sociological perspective, the collective will, which is evident in religious thought, legal codes, moral standards, social customs, public opinion, and government practices, influences and governs the will of the individual, shaping his conscience, directing his thoughts, and inclining his aspirations and desires. However, this does not necessitate the denial of the individual's free choice, for we see throughout the development of culture that a private individual may free himself from the collective will, become independent, overturn accepted norms and customs, and establish new attitudes, public opinion, and an entirely different direction. These are the main opinions of the philosophers and their conclusions on this matter. Now, let us return and examine our ancient literature to find its solution from the perspective of the Torah of Israel and its prophetic and Eggadic literature. This question is not new in the discourse of recent philosophers. It is very ancient, with all its details and branches. The wisest of men, in the book of Ecclesiastes, investigates this question in depth and says, what advantage does a person have in all his labor that he labors under the sun? There is no mystery for man and no advantage in his labor. He is bound and subject to the laws of existence and the chain of historical development. One generation passes and another comes. History, in its reality and perspectives, is an unbroken chain of causes and effects. The passing generation is the cause of the coming generation, and all are bound to the laws of existence. The sun rises and the sun sets. All the rivers flow into the sea. What has been is what will be. The past is the cause of the future. Man cannot change anything that necessarily happens due to the conditions of causality. That which is crooked cannot be made straight, and that which is lacking cannot be counted. Does knowledge create personal freedom? Kohelet answers in the negative and says, wisdom excels folly as light excels darkness. Wisdom opens broad horizons and a wide field for our free choice, But this does not remove man from the laws of causality and chance. One event happens to them all. The causality of time, to everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose. And human actions are compelled and conditioned by the changes of time and its periods. Justice. Is there really justice among people? For justice is but a tool for tyrannical rule and the exploitation of the poor. In the place of justice there is wickedness, and in the place of righteousness there is wickedness. And I saw all the oppressed who are done under the sun, and behold the tears of the oppressed, and they have no comforter. The strong devour and swallow the weak, and the weak twist and writhe in their suffering, and there is no comforter. We may add to his words, the conclusions of the philosophers from the psychological, ethical, and sociological perspectives are not sufficient to decisively affirm free choice. Indeed, we feel ourselves to be completely free in our choices. But this does not prove absolute free will. Rather, it indicates awareness of the immediate cause of our choice, or the hidden causes that led us to the decision we reached. The awareness of free choice, or of compulsion, is nothing but knowledge of the direct influence pressing upon us, or the absence of knowledge of the hidden causes that preceded our choice. Imagination deceives us into thinking that we truly act out of our own free will. We act out of a hidden desire that pushes us to actions and deeds, but this desire is formed within us by the influence of other factors, which are connected to the conditions of society and education. The will of a child is not like that of an old person, nor is the will of a wise person like that of a fool. Just as people differ in their faces, so do they differ in their wills and actions. The individual is necessarily subject to the influence of society and public opinion. And if we see a personal outburst that forcefully shakes off the collective will and creates new values, this only means that the existing values have decayed with age, or that society has advanced in its education or declined in its morality. According to its state, a personality emerges that expresses the outlook of society and creates new values that the time and situation demand. Every genius power that a generation is not worthy of. Not only does it fail to influence them, but it too, along with its ideas, is buried with it. An exception to this are the prophets of Israel, emissaries of divine providence, who illuminate the darkness of the world for Israel and all nations. Although their words were not fully accepted in their own generation, they have remained like shining stars in the sky of humanity for generations upon generations. They continue to shine, to give light, and to warn. And to the extent that humanity advances in its understanding, so too does. It recognized the greatness of the world's prophets, seekers of justice and heralds of world peace, and pure, faithful knowledge of God. Of them it is said, and those who lead the many to righteousness will be like the stars forever and ever. From this we learn that the views and proofs of philosophers are not decisive in this profound and serious question. Rather, the clear solution to this issue is the essence of the Torah in its commandments and warnings and its explicit statement, and you shall choose life, and the recognition of the divine soul within a person, that all is foreseen, yet permission is granted. Kohelet continues his inquiry, and ultimately concludes, saying, Rejoice, young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth, and walk in the ways of your heart and in the sight of your eyes, but know that for all these things God will bring you into judgment. And remember your Creator in the days of your youth. We are bound and subject to the laws of nature and its causes, to the conditions of society, and to the temperament of our bodies, which changes and influences our choices, as long as we walk as blind and sleeping people, lacking knowledge and understanding, and without awareness in all our steps and actions. But we are free in our choice to overcome causes and ascend above the perspectives and aspirations of society and the marketplace of life. If we seek to know and come to know our purpose, the purpose of a human being created in the image of God and endowed with knowledge from the source of wisdom and understanding, then we will always remember our duty towards God and humanity. Gate 5, Chapter 3. Knowledge and memory. Knowledge and memory are two good guides. As long as we cling to them and walk by their light, we are truly free in our choices, for through them, we rise above false imaginings, sober up from intoxication, and ascend to the height of our calling, which is above all the laws, conditions, and causes of nature. Kohelet adds and says, and the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. The dust within us, even as it takes shape in the form of a person, is subject and vulnerable to all the worldly events that dominate the material aspect of existence. But the divine spirit that fills all being, and dwells especially in a person, the work of God's hands, who prepares himself for the indwelling of the divine spirit upon him, he is freed from all worldly laws and their causes, but rather, he rules and decrees over them. From this perspective, the human being is not just one link in the chain of worldly existence, but a central being, a microcosm in which the entire creation, in all its forms and powers, is reflected in miniature. The end of the matter, when all is heard, Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole of man. The human being is the sum of everything, and according to his chosen actions, the entire world is judged for punishment or mercy, for God will bring every deed into judgment with every hidden thing, whether good or bad. The sages sought to hide the book of Kohelet because its words contradict each other. Why did they not hide it? Because its beginning and end are words of Torah. Its beginning is words of Torah, as it is written, "What advantage does a person have in all his labor that he labors under the sun? Under the sun he has, none before the sun he does have. And its end is words of Torah, as it is written, the end of the matter, when all is heard, fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole of man." What does for this mean? The entire world was created only for this, etc. Kohelet, like all later philosophers, investigates and turns over this question, not out of a tendency toward heresy to destroy sophistical arguments, but he stands at the beginning of his inquiry, at the outset of his contemplation, upon the foundation of the verified and accepted words of Torah. What advantage does a person have in all his labor that he labors under the sun? There is no advantage for a person in the lowly, murky world in and of itself, which receives its light from others above it. But there is an advantage for a person above the sun, that is, before the creation of the sun, the divine spirit that preceded the creation of the world and is the emanation of his soul. It must be extra and superior in its capacity for choice and knowledge. And as is the way of all true knowledge, whose end is rooted in its beginning, so too are the words of Kohelet. Their beginning and end are words of Torah, the foundation, upon which all Torah stands, for this is the whole of man. The whole world was created only for this, and the human being stands and brings the entire world to judgment with him. The sages express this idea more clearly, saying, "With 10 utterances the world was created, to exact punishment from the wicked who destroy the world created with 10 utterances, and to give a good reward to the righteous who sustain the world created with 10 utterances." Furthermore, the sages said, 40 days before the creation of the fetus, the Holy One, blessed be he, decrees and says, "This drop, what will become of it? Will it be rich or poor, wise or foolish, strong or weak? But whether it will be wicked or righteous, he does not say." This means that all the qualities and circumstances of a person's life do not change his choice to be righteous or wicked. Only the person himself, through his free choice, determines his fate and makes himself righteous or wicked, to receive his portion in the world, his place in the world of souls, among the wicked or among the righteous. This is one of the foundations of faith, a cornerstone and pillar for Torah and mitzvah, and for the reward and punishment from the Creator of man, great in, counsel and mighty indeed, whose eyes are open to all the ways of humanity, to give each person according to his ways and the fruit of his deeds. Knowing this is a root of faith, as Maimonides wrote. This matter is a great principle and a foundation of the Torah and the commandment, as it is said, "See, I have set before you today life," and "See, I set before you today," meaning the choice is in your hands, and whatever a person wishes to do among human actions, whether good or bad, he does. Because of this it is said, "Oh, that there were such a heart in them," meaning the Creator does not force people nor decree upon them to do good or evil, but everything is given to them, roots of free will. The pious scholar, Rabbi Hillel of Verona, conducted a very deep investigation into this question and wrote, "It has already become a consensus, and it is established in the religion of Moses and Israel, and even among the nations, that the blessed name has granted free will to human beings and endowed them with this quality, so that a person may merit reward as is fitting if he acts righteously, and be liable for punishment if he sins. Therefore, permission is given to Reuven and to Balaam, that each of them may choose what he desires, whether good or evil." I ask you, does the choice of Reuven and Balaam have any fundamental root or any proximate cause, or not? If you say that choice has no initial root and no primary cause, this cannot be, for the choice of good or evil is undoubtedly among the faculties of the soul, especially in the faculties of desire and anger, such as love and hate, anger and laughter, and the like. Therefore, the faculties of the soul are a cause for choice. And if you say that choice has no cause at all, then it would be something accidental, or even less than accidental, like a time or an event that befalls a person without any cause and without any intention. It would follow that all human actions, whether good or evil, would be accidental or happenstance, without knowledge, and would never remain consistent, not, even for a single hour, and all would be matters of vanity, for anything that happens by chance does not remain in one state for long. Consequently, the fulfillment of the Torah and its commandments would all be in this manner, without any foundation of intention on the part of those performing them, and so too the commission of sins. Thus, reward and punishment would be nullified, and faith would be lost. God forbid that this should happen. Gate 5, Chapter 4. From here, it is necessary to conclude that choice must have an initial root and a primary cause that leads to the variation of choices and the existence of differences in character traits among people. That is, the reason why Reuben chose righteousness and Balaam chose wickedness. Let us further distinguish and say, this cause must be either internal or external. If it is internal, it must be either from the soul alone or from physical nature alone. If you say the cause is from the soul, whether according to those who say all souls are of one kind, or those who say souls are many, one must ask, what is the reason for this difference in choice, since both are of the same decree? And if you say it is physical, that is, that the nature and temperament of bodies alone are the cause for the differences in the soul's perspectives and choices, as I have shown between Reuben and Balaam, this statement is inherently flawed, for we already acknowledge that the body is the matter and the soul is the form. It is known that the form is the true agent, and the matter is what is acted upon. It is not appropriate to think that what is acted upon can change the agent. For who gives life to the body at the outset? It is the power by which the soul acts. Indeed, we see that the body without the soul is like a lifeless stone and has no power at all. And if you say that this matter occurs due to the connection of the soul to the body, and that the faculties of the soul follow the temperament of the body, meaning the balance of moisture from natural heat and the boiling of the bodily humors, as you might say, Reuben's principal organs, especially the heart and liver, had a very cold temperament, and therefore he refrained from theft, forbidden sexual relations, and bloodshed, because his nature was not boiling or agitated toward lust and murder. Balaam, on the other hand, was the opposite, for his principal organs were very hot, and therefore his nature was agitated within him, and he was a man who indulged in transgressions. This theory is flawed in several ways. First, if the body's temperament and nature cause the differences in choices, then a person is compelled in his actions, and there is no free will. Second, we see people with hot temperaments who are self-controlled and ascetic, and others with cold temperaments who crave transgression. Third, we also find two people with the same nature and temperament, one of whom is ascetic and controls his desires, while the other gives free rein to all transgressions. What then is the cause in such cases? Rabbi Hillel of blessed memory continues and says, perhaps the cause is astrological, that is, from the influence of the stars. All these matters are difficult, whether according to the view that all souls are of one kind and order, or according to the view that they are many. For if, as is claimed, each person is given a soul unique to his body, then there are only two possibilities. Either all souls are good, or some are good and some are not. If all are good, what is the reason for the difference in choices? If some are not good, then each person is compelled in his actions, etc. And this is nonsense and a mockery. To solve this inquiry, he brings the words of Maimonides of blessed memory in his commentary on Pirkei Avot. It is impossible that a person is born by nature predisposed to virtue or deficiency, even if some actions are easier for him than others. He compares this to a person with a dry temperament, whose bone retains little moisture, and a person with a phlegmatic temperament, whose brain contains much moisture. He explains that he clarified this matter to refute the astrologers who claim that a person's birth determines whether he will be virtuous or deficient, and that he is compelled to perfection. Maimonides says this is not true. Rather, all a person's actions are under his own control, and nothing compels him except himself. There may be some temperamental predisposition that makes one thing easier and another harder, but it cannot be said that a good or bad action is compelled upon him in such a way that he cannot avoid it. For every trait can be changed from good to bad and from bad to good, and everything is in a person's choice from the outset of his creation. Therefore, the Torah and commandments were given to encourage good deeds and to prevent evil. Rabbi Hillel was not satisfied with this solution, and says, however, a further question remains regarding the words of the rabbi. Must we say that the only contributing factors are temperamental predispositions, or are they solely external stimuli and motivators, or do both together play a role? If you say that only temperamental predispositions are the cause, meaning that natural tendencies compel the differences in the soul's traits, then there is no free will, only compulsion by nature. Even if the assisting factor does not compel, it is still called a cause among causes. If you say that only external motivators and inciters are the cause, the scriptures and experience contradict this, for we find time and again, both in the past and present, that one person has influences that lead to good and prevent evil, and yet he chooses evil and rejects good, as with Ishmael, who was raised in the embrace of Abraham our father, etc. And we find others who had influences and motivations toward good, such as Noah and Abraham our father, who spent all their days among the wicked and idolaters, and nevertheless chose good and rejected evil, etc. Therefore, external motivators and influences are not the cause for the differences in actions, traits, and choice. And if you say that when both factors combine, the cause for the difference in choice ceases, then there is no free will at all, but rather complete compulsion from two causes. Great individuals, and a person is compelled to act because of them. When the pious Rabbi Hillel was not satisfied with the words of Maimonides, he sought alternative solutions and wrote, "There was one who said that temperamental predispositions are a primary factor in this matter, and he brought proof from the verse, and the first one came out red. He was a hairy man, and Jacob was a smooth man. He said that Esau had a temperament that inclined him toward bad character traits, for his redness and hairiness indicated a very hot and dry temperament, inclined toward the burning of bodily fluids. Therefore, because of his intense heat and agitation, he chose the occupation of hunting, which is performed with great and forceful movement, with jumping and shouting. Through this occupation, he became accustomed to associating with reckless and impulsive people, who are given to frivolity and lawlessness, and for whom it is easy to hunt people and shed their blood, just as they hunt other living creatures. Jacob, on the other hand, was a smooth man, whose balanced temperament and good disposition led him to choose rest and to dwell at home, spending time in solitude with his father Isaac and his mother Rebekah. Thus, he learned from their ways and became righteous. But one could respond to this: if so, there would be no choice, only compelling causes. Rabbi Hillel continues and writes, "I say that if there is any external cause or motivation for choice, society is the greatest influence and the primary factor in changing one's choices. The verse testifies, 'They shall not dwell in your land, lest they cause you to sin against me.' Therefore it says, 'You shall not let any soul live.' And Solomon said, 'A wicked messenger falls into mischief, but a faithful ambassador brings healing.' And our sages also said, 'Do not associate with a wicked person, and do not despair of retribution.' That is to say, if you associate with a wicked person, surely retribution will come, for one thing depends on the other. Therefore, distance yourself from an evil neighbor." But the question remains, if Reuben associates with the righteous and Balaam with the wicked, what is the cause at the very beginning, at the first point of choice, that one chose good company and the other chose bad company? And it is even more difficult based on what was said above regarding Ishmael and Esau, Noah, and Abraham. In the end, Rabbi Hillel arrived at a solution to this deep inquiry and wrote, "The choice is not equal between good and evil. Rather, choosing good truly has essential, intrinsic causes, just as all other natural phenomena have four causes: material, formal, efficient, and final. Similarly, in the act of goodness, the human species comes from the pure and noble part that could be found in matter, the fundamental intellect, as it is prepared to receive the noble form, meaning the rational soul. The formal cause of its perfection is the soul as a whole. The efficient cause of its perfection is the part of the soul called theoretical and practical intellect, which teach and guide a person, act within him so that he becomes a living, speaking being who partakes with the angel. The final cause is that by which one attains eternal success, etc. And about this it is said, 'God made man upright.' And if this is so for the species, it is also so for the individual. That is to say, that every person has these causes for choosing good. Even though God made him whole and upright from the outset, nonetheless, he gave him the gift of free choice and withheld compulsion from him, doing so out of kindness, so that he might receive a good reward for his deeds by strict justice and not by grace alone. And if he chooses good and rejects evil, he has attained two benefits. One, that he directed his choice according to his created nature and maintained his proper state, not corrupting the natural order. The second, that he earned reward for himself by justice. Thus, we have found a cause for choice and a cause for reward. The second reason is, even though by his very nature there are intrinsic causes that perfect him, nevertheless there are occasional obstacles and hindrances. These are the material forces, such as the senses and desires, which are in the soul due to its connection with the body. They were given for the preservation of the body by nature, and a person should use them in a measured and just manner, as necessary for sustaining the human body alone. Whoever does so and strengthens the intrinsic formal forces over the accidental material ones, and uses them only as necessary for the preservation of the species and does not go beyond that point, is rightly called righteous, and God will reward him according to his righteousness. This is a reason for choosing good that is natural and essential. However, the choice of evil has no essential cause, only an accidental one, just as happens to the body. For by nature, a person is meant to be healthy, not sick, and yet accidental illness may befall him. 6 matters around which medicine revolves: food and drink, evacuation and retention, sleep and waking, movement and rest, the surrounding air, and emotional movements. All these are necessary for the body's existence. If a person uses them properly and in moderation, all causes will lead to health. Yet thousands upon thousands err in this accidentally, through excessive desire, other forms of coercion, or lack of knowledge and education, resulting in bodily illness. Similarly, one who chooses evil It is an accident that has afflicted his soul and disturbed it, either due to a weakness of his intellectual faculties or the dominance of his material, desirous forces for some accidental reason, internal or external, such as bad company, fear of authorities, or other various coercions of the time. As our sages said, 3 things drive a person out of his mind and away from his creator: Gentiles, an evil spirit, and extreme poverty. They said, what is the practical outcome? To pray for mercy regarding them. This is because God gave him intellectual power to restrain himself, but if he is compelled by circumstance and transgresses once or twice, it becomes as if permitted to him, and from then on, this compulsion returns to him as if by nature. From this, we learn that this illness, choosing evil, has no essential cause, only an accidental, incidental cause. Rabbi Hillel summarized his words and wrote, "The choice of good, even if it is accompanied by these good predispositions, is not accidental but natural, for even if they are absent, it is fitting that it should exist by the law of natural order. In truth, the good predispositions that accompany it are accidental, but the choice itself is not accidental. However, if someone chooses evil, the choice itself is accidental, or it is a primary accident, and then it is an illness of the soul, or it is an accident arising from another accident, that is, the state of bad predispositions that happen to coincide. In that case, both the choice and the predispositions are accidental or incidental. From all this, you can conclude that the choice of evil is not natural at all, unlike the choice of good, and it has no root, it is entirely incidental. Nevertheless, this does not exempt a person from divine punishment. I have copied the words of the pious philosopher Rabbi Hillel, of blessed memory, exactly as he wrote and spoke them, with a brief summary of some points, for they encompass and clarify this profound issue from every side, and his words are most pleasant and precious, clear to the understanding, and upright for those who seek understanding. However, I permit myself to comment on some of his words, according to my limited understanding, in the manner of Torah study, so that the issues may be clarified in their entirety. And I say, it is correct and certain that every choice, whether for good or for evil, has its roots and is caused by preceding factors. However, these factors are not only physical, because the body, which is material, does not have the capacity to bring about a change in form, which is the soul. We see that the body without the soul is an inanimate body, lacking actions and feelings, as the Rabbi of blessed memory wrote. Rather, these factors are in the connection of the soul to the body and its powers, according to the changing temperaments of the body. Similarly, our sages interpreted and said, "For the inclination of man's heart is evil from his youth. It is written from his youth," meaning from the moment he stirs to leave his mother's womb, he is evil. The meaning of their words is that from the moment the body connects to the soul, that is, the real existence of the body and all its material and practical needs with the soul and its active powers, the struggle of choice between good and evil begins. However, this choice is not compelled, for a person can overcome either of the two inclinations and decide for good or for evil, to conquer his inclination or to suppress his soul, and to become like an animal. As the sweet singer of Israel said, "Man in his splendor, but he does not understand, is like the beasts that perish." However, even though from the beginning of existence both inclinations dwell within him, their effect is only noticeable when he reaches maturity, that is, when he is independent. Thus it is written, "And the boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the field, while Jacob was a wholesome man, dwelling in tents. When the boys grew up, they diverged in their ways." From here you learn that it was not Esau's redness and hairiness, nor Jacob's smoothness that caused the difference in their choices. Rather, their choice was intrinsic, arising from their own understanding and free will. At this point, we reach the words of the Rambam of blessed memory, who wrote, "All of a person's actions are given to him, and no one compels him except himself, unless there is some temperamental predisposition that makes one matter easier for him and another more difficult." The pious philosopher, Rabbi Hillel, of blessed memory, objected and wrote, "If you say that temperamental dispositions and stimuli, when combined, negate the cause of changing one's choice, then there is no choice at all, but rather the change is entirely necessary due to two major causes, and the person is compelled in his actions because of them. In my opinion, this is not a valid objection, because these temperamental causes and assisting factors or motivators do not determine the choice for good or evil. Rather, choice is aided by temperamental circumstances and assisting or motivating factors. Sometimes good predispositions turn to evil and vice versa, and without free choice, these factors would not operate for good or for evil. These words of the Rambam stem from the statement of our sages. If to the scoffers he will scoff, but to the humble he gives grace. In the way a person wishes to go, he is led. If one comes to defile himself, the way is open for him. If one comes to purify himself, he is helped. That is, one who comes to defile himself. The way is not blocked before him, but rather the path he chooses is open to him. But one who comes to purify himself, not only is the way opened, but he is also assisted. As Rashi explains, he is helped, and a doorway is prepared for him. Similarly, it is said in the Holy Zohar, in the matter that a person speaks, he is led. In the path a person wishes to go, he is led. Likewise, the Rambam wrote in his laws, permission is given to every person if he wishes to incline himself to a good path and be righteous. The choice is in his hands. If he wishes to incline himself to an evil path and be wicked, the choice is in his hands. As it is written in the Torah, behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. That is, this species of man is unique in the world, and no other species is like him in this regard. That he, by his own knowledge and thought, knows good and evil and does whatever he desires, and there is no one to prevent him from doing good or evil, since this is so, lest he send forth his hand. And what is it that David said? Good and upright is the Lord, therefore he instructs sinners in the way, he guides the humble. This means he sent prophets to inform them of the ways of the Lord and bring them back in repentance. And moreover, he gave them the ability to learn. And understand, for this trait is in every person, that as long as he continues in the ways of wisdom and righteousness, he desires them and pursues them. This is what our sages said. If one comes to purify himself, he is helped, meaning he will find himself assisted in the matter. Accordingly, the principle of justice and fairness requires giving each person according to his ways and the fruit of his deeds, in the way of reward and punishment. The social factor. Society is one of the greatest influences on a person's choices, as Rabbi Hillel of blessed memory learned from the verse, they shall not dwell in your land, lest they make you sin against me. And as Solomon said, a wicked messenger falls into evil, but a faithful envoy brings healing. And our sages also said, do not associate with the wicked, and do not despair of retribution, as Rabbi Hillel wrote. One can add the explicit verse, he who walks with the wise will become wise, but a companion of fools will suffer harm. Similarly, the Rambam wrote in his laws, it is human nature to be influenced in opinions and actions by friends and companions, and to behave according to the customs of one's country. Therefore, a person should associate with the righteous and always sit among the wise in order to learn from their deeds, and distance himself from the wicked who walk in darkness so as not to learn from their actions. Likewise, if one is in a city whose customs are evil and its people do not follow a straight path, he should go to a place where the people are righteous and follow good ways. Rabbi Hillel of blessed memory writes, what is the cause at the very beginning, that is, at the first point of choice, why one person chooses good company and another chooses bad company, etc.? In my opinion, this is not a question, for society is among the preparatory factors or the helpers and motivators toward good or bad actions, but it does not compel at all. Go and learn from the words of our sages. I have lived with Laban, and I did not learn from his deeds. Good company increases the guilt of one who does evil, and bad company increases the reward of one who separates from it or lessens his punishment, as in the parable of a man who had a son, washed him, anointed him, fed and gave him drink, and hung a purse at his neck, and they seated him at the entrance of a brothel. What can that child do and not sin? However, this does not exempt one from punishment, nor does it diminish the reward for good. As it is said, he visits the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, and shows kindness to thousands of generations to those who love me and keep my commandments. And Onkelos translates, when the children continue to sin after their fathers, to those who love me and keep my commandments, these are those who dwell in the land of Israel and risk their lives for the commandments. From here, it is explicit that society does not determine judgment for good or for bad, but rather it increases the merit for those who distance themselves from it and stray from its ways, and the punishment for those who are drawn after it and follow its ways and behaviors, whether good or bad. Now, let us turn to the conclusion of Rabbi Hillel, of blessed memory, who divided the causes of choice into two types. The choice of good, which arises from a natural cause, and in contrast, the choice of evil, which arises from a chance cause, like bodily illness. At first glance, this division seems to be supported by the scriptures, as it is said, take care lest your heart be seduced and you turn aside and serve other gods, and it says, your heart will become haughty, and you will forget the Lord your God. Jeshurun grew fat and kicked. Thus, the choice of evil is accidental, caused by external factors. But I have already written the teaching of our sages. From the moment a child stirs to leave his mother's womb, he inclines toward evil. And as it is written, the boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the field. But Jacob was a simple man, dwelling in tents. It is thus explicit that the choice of good or evil is not connected to the seduction of the heart or to any other means. Therefore, the question stands, Since every choice has a root cause, what is the reason for the difference in choice that one chooses good and another chooses evil? Systematic or accidental choice. Therefore, it seems to me to say, the choice of good or evil is divided into two types. A, systematic choice, whose causes are gluttony and foolishness, or abstinence and holiness. B, accidental choice, whose causes are momentary temptation and desire of the heart, or balanced judgment and generosity of spirit. How so? A person who is by nature full of desire and craving, strong in power and action, and deeply observant of everything he sees. He looks with his eyes and desires in his heart, which are the two agents of sin, as it is said, and you shall not wander after your hearts and after your eyes. From seeing and desiring, he uses his physical strength and practical nature to conquer and obtain all his desires and longings through his actions, and he says to himself, whatever your hand finds to do it with your might, for there is no work or calculation or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol where you are going. From this perspective, he observes the ways of the world and sees many contradictions that do not make sense to him, and concludes that there is no judge and no judgment except for power in its various forms. Therefore, he becomes enslaved to it and uses his power to subjugate those weaker than himself. This is the form of idolatry, which is the root of all sin, transgression, and all moral and social corruption of humanity. Its main cause is ignorance and foolishness, which leads to the choice of evil. About them it is said, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and clever in their own sight. Rational wisdom and understanding that are not based on true and original wisdom and understanding cause mistaken choices, calling evil good and putting darkness for light and sweet for bitter. This is the choice of most people who are led astray by foolishness because it is easy to attain and convenient to use for unrestrained pleasure. In contrast, there are those who truly choose good. They, like other people, see and desire, but not with superficial sight and gluttonous desire. Rather, they see with an inward and deep perspective, seeking the hidden and concealed light within all existence, according to their abilities to perceive. Their true and burning desire is to gaze and see the secrets of all creation and the hidden light within it. From this yearning of the soul, they delve deeply into contemplation and see the guide and unique one of the world, whose light and kindness flow upon all existence according to its capacity to receive. In his kindness, he opens his hand and satisfies the needs of every living being, establishes the borders of nations, maintains the world as a whole and its individuals with justice and righteousness, kindness and mercy, and gives his handiwork a true Torah, which is a Torah of life for all who walk in its ways and keep its commandments, for their good and for the good of their world. This fundamental recognition brings its holders to a pure fear of God, enduring forever, by whose light all the contradictions of the world are reconciled, especially regarding the question of God. Justice. The righteous who suffer and the wicked who prosper. A question even Moses, master of the prophets, struggled with, understanding that a human cannot solve or comprehend it. Therefore, he asked, if I have now found favor in your eyes, please show me your ways, so that I may know you and continue to find favor in your eyes. And our sages interpreted, he asked to be shown God's ways. Rashi explains, the manner of his justice, such as the righteous who prosper, the wicked who suffer, the righteous who suffer, and the wicked who prosper. Rabbi Meir said, and it was not granted to him, as it is said, I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, even if he is not worthy, and will show mercy on whom I will show mercy, even if he is not worthy. They also taught, and he said, I will make all my goodness pass before you. This refers to the attribute of goodness and the attribute of punishment. These matters are very deep and ancient to teach you, not as you think that there is in reward, bad and good, or the attribute of good and the attribute of punishment, but rather the opposite. The attribute of good is not complete except when joined with the attribute of punishment as it appears to us, and through the combination of the two. Attributes. The attribute of good of the Holy One, blessed be he, is fulfilled, for he is close to all, and his mercy is upon all his creations. But we, as humans with limited vision, cannot see the secrets of God's ways, which are wondrous beyond human understanding while alive, as it is said, for no man shall see me and live. That is, a person cannot see me while alive, as long as body and soul are joined. Thus explained Ibn Ezra, because the soul of a person is with the body, and after the death of the wise, his soul reaches a higher level that he could not reach in his lifetime. This fear of God, which is the beginning of wisdom and good understanding, brings a person to abstinence, not abstinence of self-affliction and suffering, nor abstinence of mourning as practiced by the ascetics of the nations, but abstinence of holiness, distinguishing between pure and impure, between forbidden and permitted, and between what is mine and what is yours, with great deliberation and increased caution, with clean hands, and going beyond the letter of the law according to the standard of what is good and upright in the eyes of God and man, and in the way of generosity and love. Kindness, as it is said, and I have done what is good in your eyes. And the sages interpreted this to mean that he linked redemption to prayer. These matters are ancient. This form of holy abstinence elevates its practitioner to a very high level of attachment to God, which is true knowledge of God. For knowledge and attachment are one, and the same, as the sages taught. If not for this, the other could not exist. For if there is no knowledge, from where comes attachment? And if there is no attachment, it is a sign that there is no knowledge. These two elements stand before every person, and God in his kindness and goodness gave his Torah to humanity, which is the gateway to enlightenment and the horizon of wisdom, guiding a person on the right path. Here lies the cause of the change in choice. Fools, due to their laziness, lack wisdom and understanding even though they desire it, but they are lazy in pursuit of it because it requires deep and consistent study, as well as precise and disciplined abstinence. Therefore, they avoid studying it, or they stop midway, and their partial knowledge turns into a slow-acting poison that permeates their entire being and becomes a malignant thorn in all their ways. They are like those afflicted by physical laziness, who, due to their inactivity, become isolated from society and are dead even while alive, as it is said. The desire of the sluggard kills him, for his hands refuse to work. Just as those who are lazy in body are also lazy in spirit, they long for wisdom and understanding, but refuse to do what is necessary to attain it in depth and truth. So too, Maimonides wrote, the third reason is the lengthiness of the prerequisites, for it is human nature to desire outcomes. And every person, even the simplest among them, if you awaken him as one awakens a sleeper, and say to him, would you not desire to know the number of the heavens, their nature, what is in them, who are the angels, how the whole world was created, and what is its ultimate purpose, how the soul came into the body, whether the human soul separates from the body, and if so, how and why, and all such inquiries? He will answer, yes, without a doubt, and he will naturally long to know the truth of these matters. However, he will wish to set aside this longing and attain all this knowledge in a single statement, or in one or two things you tell him. But if you were to burden him to set aside his affairs for a week in order to understand all this, he would not do it. Instead, he will be satisfied with deceptive imaginations, content with them, and will dislike being told that these matters require many prerequisites and lengthy investigation, etc. Solomon spoke well in Proverbs, strongly describing the laziness of the lazy and their idleness, all as a metaphor for laziness in the pursuit of wisdom. As it is said, the desire of the sluggard kills him, for his hands refuse to work. He said that the reason his longing kills him is that he does not strive to fulfill that longing, but only increases his desire, nothing more, and hopes to attain what he has no means to reach. In contrast, there are the select few, the people of assent, and therefore they are also persecuted. They are awakened by what they see and hear. They devote their hearts to wisdom and understanding, seeking it from its original and true source. They dedicate themselves to deep study and clarification, immersing themselves in it and weighing their actions and paths by its light, rising step by step until they attain true knowledge of God and attachment to his good and upright ways. This is the fundamental choice about which it is said, I call heaven and earth to witness against you today. I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore choose life, so that you and your descendants may live. Life and death, which are blessing and curse in both their revealed and hidden forms, are placed before you, balanced like scales, ready for your choice. Choose life, so that you and your descendants may live. So too, the wisest of men said, my child, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments. For length of days and years of life and peace they will add to you. Kindness and truth, let them not leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart, and you will find favor and good understanding in the eyes of God and man. And our sages added, we who walk in integrity, it is written of us. The integrity of the upright guides them. But those who walk in deceit, it is written of them, the perverseness of the treacherous will destroy them. The choice is given to a person to choose the path he desires. Those who choose the good path, which is complete integrity in thought and deed, as the verse commands, you shall be wholehearted with the Lord your God, meaning be complete in your reverence of the Lord your God. Their wholeheartedness leads them to devote themselves to this with all the powers of body and soul together, bringing them to its complete attainment. In contrast, there are those who betray integrity, and not only that, but they also make science and wisdom mere tools for their own ends, and thus they distort the truth. The distortion in their ways leads them to ruin. As it is said, in the way a person wishes to go, he is led. The second type of choice is incidental and temporary. These are the sinful acts that occur along a person's path, enticing him to transgress and intensifying his heart's desire. In this incidental choice, even those who fundamentally chose the good path may stumble, as it is said, for there is no person so righteous on earth who does good and never sins. But people differ in their choices. Some stumble at first, and after transgressing once and it becomes permitted in their eyes, they continue and are drawn after it, adding sin to sin. About this, the sages said, one transgression leads to another. Others confess and repent, and this is the quality of repentance described in the Torah. Summary: a person created in the image of God is endowed with a unique spirit, unlike any other creature in all of creation, in the heavens above and on the earth below. Therefore, he is free to choose goodness and blessing, life and peace, both in his life on earth and in the eternal life and glory of the world of souls. He alone merits God's reward for his actions and deeds, all of which are known and revealed to his Creator, as it is said, great in counsel, and mighty in deed, whose eyes are open to all the ways of mankind, to give to each according to his ways and according to the fruit of his deeds. The knowledge of this is one of the foundations of the Torah of Israel, as it is said, and you shall choose life. So too, Maimonides wrote in his legal code, permission is granted to every person. If he wishes to direct himself toward the good path and be righteous, the choice is his. And if he wishes to direct himself toward the bad path and be wicked, the choice is his. As it is written in the Torah, behold, a man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil, meaning that this species of man is unique in the world, and there is no other species like him in this regard. That he, of his own knowledge and thought, knows good and evil and does whatever he chooses, that he desires, and there is no one who can prevent him from doing good or evil. Since this is so, it says, lest he put forth his hand. And this is a fundamental principle, and it is a pillar of the Torah and the commandments. As it is stated, see, I have set before you today life and good, and death and evil, and it is written, see, I am setting before you today, meaning that the choice is in your hands. Whatever a person wishes to do among human actions, he does, whether good or bad. Because of this, it is said, oh, that they had such a heart as this always, meaning that the Creator does not force people nor decree upon them to do good or evil, but rather everything is given over to them. Do not be surprised and ask, how can it be that a person does whatever he wishes and his actions are in his own hands? Can someone do something in the world without his Creator's permission or will? For it is written, whatever the Lord desires, he does in heaven and on earth. Know that everything is done according to his will, even though our actions are given over to us. How so? Just as the Creator willed that fire and wind rise upward, and water and earth descend downward, and the celestial sphere revolves in a circle, and so too the other creatures of the world follow the nature he wished for them. Likewise he willed that man's free will be in his own hands, and that his actions are given over to him, and that there should be neither compulsion nor coercion, but rather, by his own choice and the understanding granted to him by God, he does whatever a person can do. Therefore, if he does good, good is bestowed upon him. If he does evil, he is harmed. This is what the prophet says. This has come from your own hand. They too have chosen their own ways. Regarding this, Solomon said, rejoice, young man, in your youth. But know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment, meaning, know that you have the power to act, and you will ultimately be held accountable. From here, a person must know through his understanding and intellect that he is free in his choices and actions, and therefore he is judged for them. This awareness elevates a person above all other creatures and magnifies him even in his own eyes. It liberates him from all desires and grants him freedom and greatness, counsel and strength to reject evil and choose good, and to be good both in the eyes of heaven and of people. Beloved above and cherished below, and he merits the world to come, to sit among the righteous who sit with their crowns on their heads and enjoy the radiance of the divine presence. Gate 5, Chapter 5, Man and the World. The philosophers of the nations of the world say, man is a real being, wise and superior to all other living creatures and plants. Yet, in the context of the universe, man is nothing but a tiny grain of sand, a fleeting and insignificant creature, not worthy of attention or consideration of his actions in life. This was the error of Job, who wanted to turn everything upside down and say there is no justice and no judge, as he says, what is man, that you magnify him and that you set your heart upon him? You visit him every morning and try him every moment. I have sinned. What have I done to you? Why do you not pardon my transgression and take away my iniquity? For now I shall lie in the dust, and you will seek me, but I will not be. In contrast, those who seek the truth argue and say, when I behold your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have established, what is man that you are mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you visit him? Yet you have made him little less than the angels, and crowned him with glory and honor, You have made him rule over the works of your hands. You have put all things under his feet. The former find a solution to this inquiry with superficiality, negating themselves and denying their own essence. But the latter, who stand on true and accepted foundations, look at this question from both perspectives. They see the greatness of the universe in its quantity and its wondrous quality, which attests to the wisdom of its creator and ruler, the creator of the works of Genesis, and before them stands man, in his body and weakness, as a negligible existence. From another perspective, they see man's dominion, his intellect penetrating the depths and soaring to the heights. You have made him rule over the works of your hands. You have put all things under his feet, and full of awe and wonder, with trembling and joy, they say, O Lord, our Master, how majestic is your name in all the earth. To resolve this inquiry, our teacher Saadia Gaon says, even though we see many created beings, we should not be confused as to their purpose. What is it? For the purpose or end stands among things that are not as important as it is. And I saw that the earth is in the center of the heavens, and the spheres revolve around it on all sides, so it is established for us that the purpose of creation is the earth. Then we examined all its parts, and we saw earth and water are both inanimate. Animals are not speaking beings, and nothing remains but man, and it becomes clear that he is the intended purpose without a doubt. We searched the books and found the Creator's statement, I made the earth and created man upon it, like one who builds a palace, arranges and prepares it, and then brings in its owner. Compare Sanhedrin 38b, a parable to a king who built a palace, arranged a feast, and then brought in guests, and in Bereshit Rabbah, a parable to a king who had a tower full of good things but no guests. What benefit does the king have from its creation? Saadia Gaon adds, how can the purpose of the whole world be man, when we see him as small and insignificant? I found that even though his body is small and lowly, his soul is broader than the heavens and the earth, for his knowledge encompasses them, until he comes to know what is above them, which is the foundation of their existence, meaning the blessed Creator, as it says, how wondrous are your works, and my soul knows it very well. The sage left us with this only because he placed him in a position for his commandments and warnings, as it says, and to man he said, behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to depart from evil is understanding. The meaning of Saadia Gaon's words is, the earth is the purpose of all creation, and all the heavenly hosts preserve its existence, like roots, trunk, branches, leaves, and bark that nurture the fruit and preserve the tree in its species. Man is the essential purpose, drawing his vital existence from all of creation, and in measure, he gives it vital existence, like a splendid and magnificent palace that awaits the person who will live in it and give it life and splendor. Based on this approach, but in even clearer terms, Rabbi Joseph Albo writes in Sefer Haikarim, man alone is the main purpose of creation in the lower world, and the choicest of all lower beings, for he is the bearer of form and perfection for the rest. The forms, and for this reason, the creation of man was delayed and attributed to God more than any other living being, to hint that the ultimate intention of the Creator in forming the preceding forms, those of plants and animals, was solely for the existence of the human form. For only man, among all the lower existences, recognizes the existence of the Creator. When man was created, creation was completed. Then it is said, the heavens and the earth were finished, and all their array. The purpose of man is to keep the commandments of his Creator. This idea was further explained. When we examine the nature of forms found in matter and all the lower existences that come into being, we find that they all progress toward perfection, each in its own way. Just as movement ends in a certain goal, which is the cause of all partial movements, so too, existence ascends from level to level until it ultimately reaches the human form and remains there, for it is the purpose of all lower existences. In the human species, existence reaches its culmination. Therefore, man is greater than all and dominates all living creatures and rules over them, because all his perceptions are general, while the perceptions of all animals are particular. The ultimate purpose of human existence is to know God and to fulfill his commandments. When action is joined with knowledge, and when the intention in action is to do the will of God, the human goal is attained, that is, the preservation of the soul in the world to come. However, Maimonides fundamentally disagrees with this premise and says, observe these physical existences, how immense is their size and how numerous they are. If the whole earth is insignificant compared to the sphere of the stars, what is the value of man compared to all these created things? How could anyone think that all of this was made for him and because of him, and that they serve only his needs? This is a materialistic analogy, even more so when considering the existence of the separate intellects. Our teacher, Rambam, strongly opposes the search for the purpose of the existence of the world and man. He says, according to our view of the creation of the world after its non-existence, some think that this question is necessary, meaning the search for the purpose of all existence. They also think that the purpose of all existence is the existence of the human species alone, and that everything was made for him, to the extent that even the celestial spheres revolve only for his benefit and to provide for his needs. Some simple readings of the prophetic books may suggest this idea. However, when you investigate this matter, you will see its error. One should ask anyone who believes this: could the Creator have brought man into existence without all these prerequisites, or is it impossible for him to exist without them? If one says that it is possible, and that God could create man without the heavens, for example, then what is the purpose of all these things? Even if everything existed for man, and man's purpose is to serve God, the question remains, what is the purpose of his service? God gains nothing if all of creation serves him and attains the highest knowledge, nor does he lose anything if nothing else exists at all. If one says it is not for his perfection, but for ours, because it is good for us and perfects us, the question still stands: what is the purpose of our existence in this perfection? Therefore, my true opinion, according to Torah beliefs and suitable philosophical views, is that we should not believe that all existences are for the sake of man, but that they also have their own purposes. When you study that book, which directs everything toward its purpose, and for this reason it is called Torah, you will see that from the beginning of the account of creation to its end, it does not state that anything exists for the sake of something else. Rather, for each part of the world, it is stated that he created it and that its existence was fitting for its own purpose. This is what is meant by God saw that it was good, and for everything, God saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. We must strive to believe that all of existence is directed by him according to his will, and we should not seek any other cause or purpose at all. Just as we do not seek the purpose of his existence, so we should not seek the purpose of his will. The words of our teacher, Rambam, are correct in their reasoning if we understand purpose as intention or will. But when our sages said that man is the purpose of creation, they meant that he is the highest level of perfection and excellence. There is no perfection or excellence above it. All of creation, in its entirety and in its parts, is a purpose unto itself, all directed toward reaching this ultimate state in which its existence is completed in the most refined form, which is the essential goodness. Rabbi Judah Halevi also said, existence has higher and lower levels, and anything that possesses sensation, understanding, and perception is superior to that which does not, because of its closeness to the first cause, which is intellect itself. Thus, the lowest plant is higher than the highest inanimate object. The lowest animal is higher than the highest plant. The lowest human is higher than the highest animal. And the lowest among those who possess the Torah of God is higher than the highest among nations who do not have the Torah of God. For the Torah, which is from God, grants souls the manners and qualities of angels, which cannot be attained through philosophical study. The proof is that constant practice of the Torah leads to the levels of prophecy, which is the closest human level to God. The great poet Rabbi Judah Halevi does not base his conclusion on observation of the workings of the world or human activity, but rather, from the depth of his feeling, he solves this profound question and says, the person who forms his soul and illuminates it with the divine light, hidden in secret from the source of light, which is the divine Torah, this is the complete person who has reached the pinnacle of perfection. Humanity as a whole is very small in comparison to the celestial spheres, and even more insignificant compared to the angels in terms of their qualities. Yet, man rises and is elevated above them in his intellectual achievement, for he is greater than the ministering angels. For the Torah, which is from God, grants souls the manners and qualities of angels, which cannot be attained through study alone. That is, not through scientific or philosophical study, but through practical evidence that perseverance in Torah study and its commandments elevates a person to the highest level, which is prophecy. From this perspective, man is the purpose of creation, not the purpose of intention or will, but the purpose of perfection, the highest degree on the ladder of creation, which is set upon the earth and whose top reaches the heavens. This is the depth of our sages' saying. Rabbi Bania said, the world and all that is in it was created only for the sake of the Torah. As it is said, the Lord by wisdom founded the earth. Berechiah says, it is in the merit of Moses, as it is stated, and he saw the first for himself. The Torah and the human being, when they merge and are empowered as one inseparable entity, are the merit of the world, that is, its beauty and splendor. Without this, the world is corrupted and dark, devoid of knowledge and understanding, comparable to the beasts of the field and the fish of the sea, where the stronger devours the weaker. The greatness of the human being lies not only in his ability to shape himself and ascend to great heights in his understanding and knowledge, but also in his ability to conquer the forces of nature, penetrate its depths, reveal its mysteries, and subjugate them to his will. In this sense, he is called the purpose of existence, for the keys to creation have been entrusted to him, and all of it is subject to his practical and scientific service. To recognize the peak of human excellence, one must look at the beginning of his creation, when he is an infant and a suckling. At this stage, we see his powerlessness, lacking any ability for understanding or self-protection for his bodily existence and spiritual development. If we follow his progression through the stages of elevation and dominion over the forces of nature and existence, and in his higher and mysterious attainments, we are compelled to acknowledge his exalted form. As the sweet singer of Israel says in his Psalms, out of the mouths of babes and sucklings you have established strength because of your adversaries, to silence the enemy and the avenger. When I behold your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have established. In comparison to man, small and lowly, the question arises, what is man that you are mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you care for him? And when we look at this time at his spiritual elevation, we recognize and know his supreme status, yet you have made him but little lower than the angels, and have crowned him with glory and honor. You have made him to have dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under his feet. It is said, O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. For in the exalted human being, in whom supreme wisdom and the essential goodness of the work of creation are reflected, the quality of the Creator's goodness is clearly recognized. O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. But why should we seek out the words of scholars and philosophers? And why should we delve deeply into our own ideas and seek solutions to this inquiry when it has already been resolved? In the concise and wise words of the sages, the end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole of man. What is meant by, for this is the whole of man? Rabbi Elazar said, the Holy One, blessed be he, said, the entire world was created only for this. Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana said, this one is equal to the entire world. Rabbi Shimon ben Azai said, the entire world was created only to be joined to this one. In these words, the sages completed and clarified one another, explaining the honorable place of the human being in the existence of the world and his responsibility for his actions, toward himself, toward all of human society, and toward the entirety of creation. The whole world was created only for this. All the forces of blossoming and growth in the universe, all the mighty forces of nature hidden in every part of existence, are indeed ends unto themselves, but they are placed in the hands of man, to bring them to physical flourishing and intellectual acumen, or to turn them into destructive forces. Man builds and plants, uproots and destroys. Thus, the world is a field of cultivation and labor for the personal and societal existence of man, and it is a shining star, radiating divine sparks to illuminate his soul. A parable. A person was traveling from place to place and saw a palace aglow with light. He said, could it be that this palace has no master? The owner of the palace looked out at him and said, I am the master of the palace. So too, when Abraham said, could it be that this world has no master? The Holy One, blessed be he, looked out at him and said, I am the master of the world. The world is a palace aglow that lights up our eyes and souls, and it is illuminated by man with a reflected light that brightens our darkness and reveals its hidden light. In this sense, it is said, the whole world was created only for this. Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana adds, this one is equal to the entire world. The human being is the unique creature who is worthy of love because of the special quality within him, like a diamond set in a golden ring surrounded by small pearls, which are illuminated by it and add to its charm. The world, in all its varied existence, is a framework of wondrous pictures in their beauty and splendor, and man, standing at its center, with his intellectual power, penetrates and breaks through the depths, soars and rises to the heights of heaven, to the throne of glory. He unites heaven and earth and all their hosts, making them into one entity that declares the honor and praise of its creator and maker. In this way, he is equal to the entire world, and, moreover, the whole world in all its forms is but a single body that stands to accompany him in all his ways. As our sages said, the whole world was created only to be joined to this one. All of creation is made up of opposing and contradictory forces. In the existence of the world, life and death are intertwined, waging an unending battle. The human being creates, from among these opposites, the harmonious society of all existence, and the connection between humanity and the other laws of creation, through his opposing forces of separation and integration that are within him. He separates and analyzes evil from good, blends and mixes good with evil, and transforms destructive and harmful forces into beneficial and unifying ones, as it is said, for you shall be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with you. Thus, the human being is both the unifier and the separator, and all of existence follows him and his actions and becomes his companion. Through his good deeds, a person rises to the point of becoming a partner with the Holy One, blessed be he, in the act of creation. Whoever prays on Friday night and says, Vai Chulu. Scripture considers it as if he became a partner with the Holy One, blessed be he in the act of creation, as it is stated, Vayachulu. Do not read Vayachulu, but Vayachalu. And any judge who judges a true judgment for even 1 hour, Scripture considers it as if he became a partner with the Holy One. Blessed be he in the act of creation. The human being is a chariot for the divine presence in our world, as it is said, and I will dwell among them. The whole world was created only to be joined to this one. From these perspectives, the human being is both the commanded and the recipient of reward. He is judged for all his actions, and the entire world is judged according to his deeds, for punishment or for kindness. This is the depth of the sage's statement. With 10 utterances, the world was created. Could it not have been created with a single utterance? Rather, it was to exact retribution from the wicked and to grant reward to the righteous who sustain the world. Our revered sages, the Kabbalists of blessed memory, also followed this path. Rabbi Chaim Vital of blessed memory, the devoted disciple of the Holy Ari, writes, "When it arose in his blessed will to create the world, it was, in order to bestow goodness upon his creations, so that they would recognize his greatness and merit becoming a chariot above, to cleave to him, may he be blessed." He elaborates further concerning the ultimate purpose of the creation of the world. Let us explain 2 inquiries that our sages, the Kabbalists, delved into. The first inquiry is, as the early and later sages investigated, what was the reason for the creation of the worlds? For what cause was it? They discussed, concluded, and declared the reason was that it is necessary for him, may he be blessed, to be perfect in all his actions, powers, and in all his names of greatness, exaltedness, and honor. If he did not actualize his powers and actions into deed and reality, he would not, so to speak, be called perfect in his actions or in his names and attributes. For the great name, which consists of 4 letters, is so called to acknowledge his eternal existence and everlasting being. He was, he is, and he will be, before creation, during the existence of creation, and after it transforms into whatever will be. If the worlds and all within them had not been created, he could not manifest existence. Likewise, the name Adnat is so called to indicate mastery, that he has servants and is their Lord. If he had no creations, he could not be called Lord. The same applies to all other names. Similarly, concerning the attributes such as merciful, gracious, slow to anger, he would not be called by these names, and so with all other attributes. However, with the worlds created, his actions and powers, may he be blessed, are brought into actuality, and he is called perfect in all types of actions and powers, and is also perfect in all names and attributes, without any deficiency at all. This reason is explained well in the Zohar. Before the world was created, he was called by all these levels according to the names of the creations that were destined to be created. For if there were no creations in the world, why would he be called merciful judge? And in Parashat Bo, it says, if his light had not spread over all creations, how would he be known, and how would it be fulfilled? The whole earth is filled with his glory. At first glance, these 2 statements appear contradictory. In the first, the purpose of creation is to benefit humanity and elevate them to cleave to God. In the second, the purpose returns to the Creator himself, to actualize his powers in perfection. This is a difficult concept to express. However, upon deeper understanding, we find that both point to a single essential idea: the creation of the world in general, and humanity in particular, is the proper form for the revelation of God's attribute of goodness and kindness, in its greatest and widest sense, which is revealed in thousands of forms and garments, and which testifies to his eternity and mastery, his providence and governance of the world with justice and righteousness, grace, loving kindness, and mercy. All of creation progresses and ascends, step by step, in the refinement of this divine revelation, until it reaches the ultimate and final level, to make known to humankind his mighty acts and the glorious majesty of his kingdom, and to elevate humanity, the choicest of creation, to the highest rung of becoming a chariot for the divine presence on earth, to cleave to his eternity and pleasantness, may he be blessed. For this purpose humanity was created. If the worlds and all within them had not been created, he could not manifest existence. And likewise, the name Adnat indicates mastery, that he has servants and is their Lord. If he had no creations, he could not be called Lord. The same applies to all other names, and to the attributes such as merciful, gracious, slow to anger. He would not be called by those names, and so with all other attributes. But with the worlds created, his actions and powers, may he be blessed, are brought into actuality, and he is called perfect in all types of actions and powers, and is also perfect in all names and attributes, without any deficiency at all. This reason is explained well in the Zohar. Before the world was created, he was called by all these levels according to the names of the creations that were destined to be created. For if there were no creations in the world, why would he be called merciful judge? And Parashat Bo, it says, If his light had not spread over all creations, how would he be known, and how would it be fulfilled? The whole earth is filled with his glory. Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, in his book Klachpiche Shochma, wrote, "The ultimate purpose of the creation of the world is to bestow goodness according to his ultimate desire, with the greatest goodness. The Holy One, blessed be he, wished to bestow complete goodness, so that there would not even be shame for those who receive it. He determined to reveal in actuality his perfect unity, that there is no obstacle before him and no deficiency. Therefore, the name of this governance is conduct, in which evil will ultimately be returned to good. That is, he initially gave space for evil to act. And in the end, every corruption is, and all evil returns to true goodness, and thus the unity is revealed, which itself is the delight of the souls." These are the very things that Rabbi Chaim Vital wrote, as we have explained his words. Ramchal further explained this question, and, at the outset, set down a fundamental principle. It is not arrogance for a person to inquire and seek the Creator's intention, but rather, it is God, his will to reveal his secret to his creations, as the sweet singer of Israel said, "The secret of the Lord is with those who fear him, and his covenant to make them know it." The covenant of the Lord is the laws of nature, which are established and unchanging, and the ultimate purpose of all of them. For all these many and great deeds, there is one end and purpose. To reach this understanding, we are obliged to inquire among the creations, which is the principal one? The inanimate, the vegetative, and the animal are certainly not the principal ones, for their actions have no benefit, and they lack intellect and understanding. Thus, what remains are human beings and angels, and if you inquire into their nature, you will find that the human being is the principal one, and the angels are secondary to them. This is the secret explained by the psalmist. O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. Out of the mouths of babes and sucklings you have established strength. For he knew the truth of the matter, how the Holy One, blessed be he, receives strength, so to speak, from the actions of human beings to do good for them and for all creatures. This is the secret of give strength to God. And the words of Moses, our teacher, peace be upon him, you neglected the rock who bore you. From this, we know that the actions of Israel add strength to his might above. This is the order arousal, according to the law set by the Emanator, blessed be his name. Israel acts below on earth and strengthens the power of the Holy One, blessed be he, and then the power that is strengthened reveals his glory among the ministering angels who stand ready to carry out the deeds as he is aroused to act. Therefore, every arousal for the king, blessed be he, to be aroused, to act, the matter will be seen in his servants who stand at the command of deeds, etc. We find that the radiance within them comes from the awakening of the king, and the awakening of the king comes from the actions of Israel. Thus, Israel is the essence of everything. This is what is meant by, out of the mouths of babes and sucklings you have established strength to silence the enemy. This does not apply to the angels, for since the evil inclination does not rule over them, they do not subdue it, but only drive it away. However, for human beings, the task is to subdue it. From all of the above we learn, a human being, by his very nature, created in the image of God imprinted upon his face, and with the divine soul dwelling within him, is the purpose of creation. In his likeness and being, in the powers embedded in his creation, the revelation of God is reflected in all his goodness. He is the ultimate act that proceeded in thought and arose through all the stages of worldly existence in its entirety and its details. This purpose, found in the form of the human being both in general and in particular, brings forth and gives strength to God, or, conversely, brings weakness to the heavenly host. If he merits, he brings God's blessing, the revelation of the attribute of kindness, grace, and mercy from above in all its strength and glory. If he does not merit, he destroys himself and the entire world, as it is written, "And God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted its way upon the earth. He weakens the strength above." As it is said, "You weakened the rock that bore you," but ultimately, the harm and destruction return for good. And in this, the unity of God is revealed in his goodness and greatness, which is the delight of souls. This supreme perfection, which is the purpose of creation, can only be attained through knowledge of the purpose and the personal and collective mission of the human being. Therefore, our sages said, therefore the rulers say, "Come to Cheshbon. Come and let us calculate the account of the world, the loss of a commandment against its reward, and the reward of a transgression against its loss." On this, the holy Rashbi cried out, "Woe to humankind! The Holy One, blessed be he, is with them in exile. Each one turns to his own way, to his own affairs, to his own paths." Knowledge of the purpose of creation leads us to knowledge of our own purpose in life, and from this, we reach the achievement of our ultimate perfection in earthly life and eternal life. The exceptional person who becomes a partner with the Holy One, blessed be he in the act of creation, is not a lowly and dark creature, but is an exalted being, illuminated and illuminating with the light of God, which flows upon him and enlightens his soul. Man is not subject and subordinate to the laws of existence and the chain of events, but rather he rules, governs, and directs, subdues the forces of existence, and subjects them to his will. Therefore, he is judged by his actions and responsible for his deeds, and the entire world is judged according to his actions and deeds. Happy is the person who tips himself and the whole world to the side of merit, and about him it is said, "For this is the whole man." For he is equivalent to and outweighs the whole world in merit, and for his sake the world was created and endures. In a reciprocal fashion, the entire world accompanies him in all his ways, joins him in all his deeds to bring upon them the blessing of God and his success in his life on earth, and opens for him the gates of eternity and the horizons of the divine light that illuminates the entire world with his glory in this world, and with his hidden light in the world to come, where the righteous sit with their crowns on their heads and enjoy the radiance of the divine presence. Gate 5, Chapter 6. Man, by his very nature and the necessities of his existence, is a social being. His ways are many, and the conditions for his success are even more numerous. The earth does not produce bread for his sustenance, clothing to cover his nakedness, or shelter for his dwelling to protect him from the burning sun or freezing cold. Man, by his very nature, is surrounded by many enemies, both visible and hidden, who encircle him on all sides and threaten his life. Man is devoid of all weapons, bow and shield for his battle and defense, but he prepares everything for himself by his labor and intelligence, makes everything fit for his enjoyment and existence, and harnesses all the forces of nature of every kind and type to serve his existence and development. This work, with its many branches and aspects, cannot possibly be accomplished by the individual alone. Rather, it requires joint forces, where each person works for the benefit of all, gives his share to the society in which he lives, and receives his share from it, in a measure of reciprocity according to his abilities and work. To the extent that man is a social being by nature, he is also, by his disposition, an antisocial being. His essential needs are many and varied, but his desires and aspirations, which know no satisfaction, are even more numerous. There is no limit to his desires. If he has one, he wants two. His cravings are countless. The eye sees and the heart covets. There is no end to his aspirations to increase his wealth without limit, to impose his rule and authority over others, to increase his honor and expand his boundaries. These desires and ambitions, which reside in the heart of the individual, also expand to the family circle, and after that, to the nation and the people. They give rise to greed and jealousy, enmity and hatred, strife and quarrels, bloody wars between individuals, families, tribes, states, and nations. These wars destroy every good and fertile part, ruin the toil of countless hands and thousands of years, and turn human society into fish in the sea, where the bigger one swallows the smaller. As the prophet Habakkuk says, "And you make man like the fish of the sea, like creeping things that have no ruler over them. He brings up all of them with a hook. He drags them out with his net, and gathers them in his dragnet. Therefore he rejoices, and is glad. Therefore he sacrifices to his net, and burns incense to his dragnet. For by them his portion is fat, and his food is rich. Shall he therefore empty his net, and continually slay nations without pity?" The social and antisocial aspects within man dwell together and are in constant conflict, creating from their opposition the discipline of society. The social necessity overcomes the forces of division and opposition, and establishes for itself the legislator, the judge, and the ruler, who stand at the head of social leadership and direct it in the path of peace. The legislator, whether he is an individual with autocratic or consensual power, or a group of lawmakers elected by the people from its parties and classes, creates the law, which sets boundaries between the forbidden and the permitted, the optional and the obligatory. They define the limits of ownership and property for the individual and the public, and set fences and boundaries for personal freedom and the authority of society over the individual. This political doctrine, in its legal and criminal aspects, is entrusted to the judges of the people, to judge and arbitrate between individuals and society, and the authority of the law is given to the ruler, elected or appointed by the people or its representatives. This political and ethical doctrine creates public discipline, fosters the connection of the individual to society and society to the individual, and opens wide horizons and broad gates for the individual to enter society, to create within it, and to be shaped by it. This doctrine is fundamentally aimed at establishing peace, tranquility, security, and serenity in the life of the state, protecting the rights of property and individual freedom, and thereby providing broad opportunities for the improvement and advancement of life, the development of science, the revelation of the secrets of nature, the harnessing of its powers for the service of society and each of its members. This is the purpose and goal of the ethical doctrine. However, this doctrine does not guarantee eternal peace, for it itself is not eternal. Rather, it is subject to change and transformation according to the changing values of life and systems of government. This doctrine, which imposes its authority through the rule of man over man and by means of physical and financial penalties, is liable to collapse and disintegrate at any moment when the fear of the ruler's rod ceases. And there are many such moments. In addition, there are often cases due to the laws themselves, where the very law whose purpose is to protect social peace turns into a source of oppression and injustice, into laws that cannot be lived by. As the wise man says in his Proverbs, a king sitting on the throne of judgment scatters all evil with his eyes. The role of the ruler is to scatter and remove all evil in his eyes that disturbs the peace and progress of society. But who can say, I have made my heart pure, I am cleansed from my sin? Meaning, who is the king who can say of himself, I have purified my heart, etc.? And if so, who can guarantee that he has fulfilled his role to scatter all evil, or even part of it? It is possible that he scatters the good and increases the evil. Against such, Isaiah cried out and said, Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight. Human history is full of facts and events of tyrannical rule that call good evil and evil good, bringing chaos, the devouring and destroying sword, burning fire, and the cries of the oppressed and those deprived of justice throughout our human society. Furthermore, political and ethical doctrine, even at its most successful, can at most provide for economic needs, open broad fields of work, and satisfy a person's desires and pleasures within the limits of what is permitted. But it will never be able to satisfy, even partially, the multitude of a person's needs as an individual and as a member of the human species in both particular and general aspects, for these stem from the nature of his soul and his human form. A person needs, even more than material sustenance for his physical existence, spiritual nourishment to satisfy his soul's desires, to create, to grow, and to sustain his personal form and spiritual character. Human life on earth is not merely economic and pleasurable existence. These are means to achieve spiritual perfection and the elevation of the human form. In the nature of the human soul are rooted the ability to contemplate, the feeling of yearning, and the desire for knowledge and understanding. Before a person, as in a mighty stream, pass many and varied phenomena in their forms. Continuous appearances that may seem isolated and separate, but they join together and awaken in his heart a penetrating and comprehensive contemplation that unifies the particulars into a whole, analyzes the whole into its parts, connects the present to the past, and both together to the future. It connects, organically and with love, all those created in the image and all of worldly existence, the individual to the family, the nation and the state, to all of humanity and to all of creation, the hosts of heaven above and the hosts of earth below. This contemplation awakens in him a sense of wonder and the desire to know causes and their effects, antecedents and consequence. Placing on his lips the profound question, who created these? The sense of wonder and the pursuit of knowledge arouse a person to know the mysterious secrets of the divine providence that governs our world in justice and judgment, kindness and mercy in its thousands of forms and hues, all of which are one chain whose beginning is bound to its end and its end to its beginning, sustained and conducted by the will of the Creator, who declares the end from the beginning. These ideas, to which the human soul aspires, can only be acquired in community. True ideas are only established if they are publicized among the multitude through actions and deeds, and scholarly ideas are also only attained in society when the individual joins with the community and with all humanity during his lifetime on earth, and with the spiritual and literary heritage of our ancestors, teachers, and prophets. The innate yearning in man to know the truth, to winnow and purify all false and misleading ideas, constantly drives him to clarify and refine truth from falsehood, to distinguish between the imaginary and the real, between Techelet and Kala Ilan, to receive his scientific portion from society, to accept the truth from whoever says it, and to contribute his portion to the treasure of human culture. The human soul knows and is wise by nature, and seeks to acquire knowledge and increase wisdom. It is moral by nature and loves ethics. It advises and teaches, guides and directs, arouses and restrains will and energy, to refrain from action, even when sitting in secluded rooms, hidden from all-seeing eyes and hearing ears, and to act with courage even when our deeds bring us close to death, and to the sword hovering above our heads, threatening to cut the thread of our lives. These powers of the soul draw their nourishment from the influence of the environment and from national and family education. There are many branches and fields of science, many prerequisites that prepare a person to become strong in scientific and scholarly knowledge, through whose stages one ascends the ladder of true science and moral elevation. All these are only acquired in society. National or civic society alone can establish organized and advanced educational institutions, houses of study for Torah, higher colleges for all branches of science and knowledge. Human society as a whole produces, in every generation and era, great spirits and leading scholars who enriched their contemporaries and future generations with their true discoveries in worldly and divine. Science, in the works of creation and the mysteries of the divine chariot, in the science of law, true and just law, in our personal and public lives. In general, all scholarly ideas are only acquired through study in community and the discussion of colleagues engaged in the study of law. As our sages said, the Torah is only acquired in company, and the words of Torah are compared to fire. Just as fire does not burn alone, so too the words of Torah do not endure in an individual. Just as human beings differ in their aspirations and interests, in their physical constitution and character traits, so too do they differ, much more so, in their opinions and worldviews. A person is capable of giving up their aspirations and possessions for the benefit of others, but they can never truly deny or relinquish their opinions. Wars of religion and ideology have spilled far more innocent blood than political or economic wars. Opinions and religious beliefs, legal and moral principles, because of the subtlety and delicacy of their subjects, are especially prone to error and illusion. In this realm, wicked and violent people find a wide field for harmful activity. Hypocrites and those led by imagination mislead the masses, calling them to battle in the name of knowledge and Torah. This kind of conflict is terrible and dreadful, and its consequences are many and grave. It brings with it the devouring and consuming sword, devastation, lawlessness and violence, bereavement and destruction, eternal enmity and hatred, deceit and falsehood, and the disintegration of social, economic, and political order. Thus, just as a person is inherently social due to their material and spiritual existence, so too are they by their very nature antisocial. And this latter tendency often prevails, turning human society into a pack of predatory beasts that destroy and ruin, such that it would have been better had they never existed or joined together. As our sages said, an assembly of the wicked is bad for them and bad for the world. So who or what is the thread that binds all of human society together, the central bar that sustains its social and unified existence? Our sages answer this question with their concise yet profound halakhic statement. One who sees a multitude of Israel says, "Blessed is the wise knower of secrets, for their minds are not alike, nor are their faces alike." One who sees a multitude of Israel, a symbol of the ideological and intellectual unity of human society, wonders who gathered all these people like sheaves to a threshing floor. Who maintains the unity and fellowship of these multitudes, even when they are scattered and divided, lacking a shared homeland in a single state? The answer is, blessed is the wise knower of secrets. It is not merely economic or social interests, nor even natural science or cultural and moral education that is the foundation of society. Rather, it is the higher mysterious knowledge that cannot be sensed, but dwells deep within the soul. Divine knowledge lifts a person from the depths of their earthly condition to the heights of the heavens, to the understanding of the mysteries of the divine chariot and creation, and to the knowledge of the mysterious and hidden ways of divine providence that governs the world and fills all of creation with radiant light. The wise knower of secrets, in his perfect and absolute unity and wondrous wisdom, unites people with one another around their great and lofty purpose, and unites all humanity, every individual, with all creation and the heavenly hosts above. He unites his pious ones and prophets with the God of heaven and earth as they become a chariot for his presence and bearers of his word, and Torah to his creatures made in his image. The Agadah explains this halakhic teaching. Ben Zoma saw a multitude on the Temple Mount and said, "Blessed is the wise knower of secrets, and blessed is he who created all these to serve me." He used to say, how much labor did Adam, the first man, have to exert before he found bread to eat? He plowed, sowed, reaped, gathered, threshed, winnowed, ground, sifted, kneaded, baked, and only then did he eat. And how much labor did Adam exert before he found a garment to wear, etc.? But I rise and find all these prepared for me. Ben Zoma, who investigated the mysteries of creation, stood on the heights of the Temple Mount, immersed in his scholarly contemplation to discover the connection between the upper and lower waters. At that moment, he looked deeply at the multitude of Israel, seeing the individual as part of the collective, forming the national body of Israel, and simultaneously observed the individual in isolation, recognizing the weakness and insignificance of the individual deprived of the basic necessities of food and clothing. From this, he understood both the social and antisocial aspects of humanity, and therefore blessed. Blessed is the wise knower of secrets, who knows the mysteries of creation, hidden and concealed within all of existence. The highest purpose for which the world and humanity were created is the foundation of the existence of human society and its ultimate purpose. For they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest, says the Lord. From this, the social and economic foundations of human society branch out and are maintained, which themselves are also among the kindnesses of God toward his creatures, for through them the conditions of life are improved and refined. making it possible for people of spirit and knowledge to devote themselves to study and research and to contribute their share to the treasury of literature and science of human society, which grows richer with each generation, drawing ever closer to its ultimate purpose. The recognition of economic sociality, as expressed by Benzoma in his statement, "Blessed is he who created all these to serve me," necessarily raises another question: why am I here? All these things were indeed created to serve me, but for what was I created? The answer is to serve all of them to the maximum of my physical and intellectual ability, so that I may earn my livelihood by contributing my share to the work of all. The science of ethics, this discipline which the soul longs for, is also not entirely clear or defined. Of this too it is said, just as the faces of people are not alike, so too their opinions are not alike. Each person has their own moral outlook, according to their culture and upbringing, their temperament and character. Every nation and state has its own moral perspectives. What one permits, another forbids. What one declares impure, another declares pure. The standard for the science of ethics is the Torah of God, as our sages rightly said. The words of the wise are like goads and like well-driven nails, given by one shepherd. All of them were given by one God. One leader spoke them from the mouth of the master of all deeds. Blessed be he, as it is said, and God spoke all these words. You too, make your ear like a funnel and acquire for yourself an understanding heart to hear the words of those who declare pure and those who declare impure, those who forbid and those who permit. The Torah of a living God, which emanates from the truth of his unity, unites everything and spreads a shelter of true peace over all who study it. And observe its commandments as it is written, and all your children shall be taught of the Lord, and great shall be the peace of your children. Gate 5, chapter 7. The examination of the divine Torah. The divine Torah is distinguished in three ways, in its truth and in its distinction from other teachings. The ethical and legal are as follows. A. The existence of prophecy itself. Thus, rules Maimonides in his laws, it is one of the foundations of the faith to know that God grants prophecy to human beings. This was confirmed by the testimony of sight and hearing at the revelation at Mount Sinai, as Moses said to Israel, "From the heavens he let you hear his voice to discipline you. And on earth he showed you his great fire, and you heard his words from the midst of the fire." And the Israelites who were present at that event testified and said, "This day we have seen that God speaks with a human being, and he remains alive." B. The truthfulness of the prophet himself. As it is stated at Mount Sinai, "Behold, I will come to you in a thick cloud, so that the people may hear when I speak with you, and also believe in you forever." And the Israelites at that event affirmed their complete faith in the prophecy of Moses and said, "You speak with us, and we will listen." Similarly, it is stated regarding Samuel, "And all Israel from Dan to Beersheba knew that Samuel was established as a prophet of the Lord." And Maimonides rules and says, "A prophet may receive prophecy for himself alone, etc., or he may be sent to a nation, to the inhabitants of a city or to a kingdom, to guide them and inform them what they should do, or to prevent them from their evil ways. And when he is sent, he is given a sign or a wonder, so that the people will know that God has truly sent him." See the content of his Torah and prophecy. Maimonides writes, "When you find a Torah whose entire intention and the intention of its giver is the order and regulation of the state and its affairs, to remove oppression and violence from it, and it does not in any way address intellectual matters, nor does it aim to perfect the intellectual faculty, nor does it concern itself with whether beliefs are healthy or corrupt, but its entire purpose is to regulate human affairs among themselves and to bring them some measure of success. Know that this Torah is a legal code. But when you find a Torah whose guidance is directed both toward the improvement of physical matters and the perfection of faith, and its intention is to impart true knowledge about God, first and foremost, and about the angels, and it strives to make people wise, to understand and awaken them until they know all existence according to the truth, know that this is guidance from him, blessed be he. From this perspective, when we examine the full content of the Torah of Moses, we find that it encompasses all these intentions. Thus writes the author of Sefer HaKarim, "The Torah of Moses encompasses three parts, which indicate three distinct matters: wisdom, will, and ability. The first part encompasses true beliefs and is called things, due to its scientific aspect regarding the existence of God, Torah from heaven, Providence, his incorporeality, and the creation of the world. The second is the part encompassing things that are desirable to God, called statutes, which are commandments whose reasons are not known, etc., and these are things that are pleasing to him, blessed be he, after he has commanded them. As the sages said, what does it matter to the Holy One, blessed be he, whether one slaughters from the neck or from the nape? Rather, it is a satisfaction before me that I spoke, and my will was done. Similarly, regarding the sacrifices, it is a satisfaction before me that I commanded, and my will was done. The third part encompasses the pursuit of justice and the removal of oppression among people, called ordinances, which derive from his ability. The division of the author of Sefer HaKarim is essentially correct, though not in its exact form. The Torah of Israel branches into three general categories. As it is written, these are the testimonies, the statutes, and the ordinances that Moses spoke to the children of Israel when they came out of Egypt. The testimonies are testimony to beliefs and opinions, a testimony to the creation of the world and its continual existence through the will and desire of its creator, sustainer, and guide. This testimony is the commandment of Shabbat as a remembrance of the 6 days of creation, and Israel are its witnesses through the sanctification of the day and the cessation of all work. And Shabbat testifies about Israel, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations to know that I, the Lord, sanctify you, testimony about the providence of God that is attached and unique to humanity as a whole, and to Israel in particular, namely, the festivals and appointed times. Testimony about the continual connection between a person and his God, namely, the tabernacle and its vessels, the menorah of testimony and the table of the presence which stands before the Lord always. They are faithful witnesses to the presence of the divine among Israel, even when they are full of transgressions, as it is said, who dwells with them in their impurity. Even though they are impure, the divine presence remains among them. Similarly, the sages said regarding the menorah of testimony, it is a testimony to all the world's inhabitants that the divine presence rests among Israel. Judaism, its Torah in general and in detail, and Israel, its students, and those who observe its commandments, are a faithful and enduring testimony to the truth of God's unity in existence and to his general and particular providence over all his creations and creatures. Thus the prophet says, in the name of God, you are my witnesses, says the Lord. The statutes are not only those commandments whose reasons and testimonies are unknown to us, but all the commandments in their practical form are a supreme decree, to which our intellect submits and obeys. I have enacted a statute, I have issued a decree, and you have no right to question them. Proof of this is found in the commandment of Passover. According to all its statutes and all its ordinances, you shall perform it. And the Passover commandment in all its details is not in the category of statutes whose reasons are not explained, like the red heifer and the like. From here we learn that all the commandments of the Torah, even the rational ones, are considered statutes in their details, and the archetype for all commandments is the Passover sacrifice, which, though rational in its foundation, is a statute in all its details, as it is said, according to all its statutes and all its ordinances you shall perform it. This is the archetype for all the commandments of the Torah, that they are statutes and ordinances. The statutes of the Torah, in general and in detail, shape the life of the nation, beginning with the section on appointing a king, the commandment of the priesthood, appointment of judges, gifts to the poor, and love of kindness, the sanctity of Shabbat and festivals, sabbatical and jubilee years, the pursuit of just judgment, and love of God and humanity, including also the section on war and its foundation and particulars. The statutes of the Torah are intended to guide the individual and the community in the ways of righteousness, to clarify the dross and impurities, the impurity and filth that cling to a person due to his material nature. As the sages said, what does it matter to the Holy One, blessed be he, whether one slaughters from the neck or from the nape? The commandments were only given to refine the creatures. All the statutes collectively tell us, and you shall love the Lord your God, and you shall walk in his ways, and you shall fear your God. I am the Lord. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. With these words, every person is reminded of his duty to his God, his duty to his people, and his duty to every human being. Created in the image of God, a person's foremost obligation is to be holy in both body and soul, in speech and action, in thought and in the meditations of the heart, as it is stated, sanctify yourselves and be holy, for I am holy. One's duty extends to previous generations, from whom one is descended and influenced, to future generations, who will be influenced by and descend from oneself, and to one's own eternity. Through moral, scientific, and intellectual elevation in one's life, a person attains eternal life in the world to come and the perpetuation of their name among the people for their generation and for generations to come. The concept of laws, in its narrow sense, the term refers to laws governing relationships between individuals. In its broader sense, it means judging actions according to rational thought and the inner intent behind every deed. As it is said, good is the man who is gracious and lends, he will manage his affairs with justice. The discipline of law stimulates contemplation and thought to penetrate the inner light of the mitzvah, to understand its spirit and its ramifications, and to fulfill it out of love and affection. This discipline provides guidance for all aspects of human life, restrains desires, refines character, and enlightens the eyes to see truth and attain correct opinions. as well as the perfection of good qualities, noble traits, and the highest virtues through which a person forms their character, achieves completeness, and ascends. This Torah, in its entirety, is reflected in every part of it, in every mitzvah. This threefold thread is evident: testimonies, statutes, and laws. It testifies about itself that it is a Torah of life emanating from the one God, who is the source of life and the emanation of light, as it is written, "For with you is the source of life. In your light we see light." It grants those who truly and wholeheartedly observe its commandments a Torah of truth and eternal life. This is the glory and secret of the existence of the people of Israel, who are faithful and bound to their Torah with love and affection, always blessing their God, who has given us his Torah of truth and implanted eternal life within us. Just as truth is unchanging and eternal, and there's only one truth, so too all who cleave to it, study its words, delve into its thoughts, and fulfill its commandments with love, cleave to the God of truth, who gives a Torah of truth to his people, bringing them eternal life. This Torah of truth we have preserved throughout our years of wandering in exile with our souls and spirits. Wherever Israel went, they brought their Torah scrolls before them, their most precious possession. They established yeshivot for Torah study, built synagogues for Torah and prayer, and looked forward in faith to the promises of the Torah, the ingathering of exiles, and the return of the divine presence of the God of Israel, Hashem, Lord of hosts, to his people, his land, and his holy temple. Fortunately, we are eyewitnesses, ourselves and all the world, to the truth of this Torah of truth, which is the Torah of life, in the dawning light of redemption, hidden and concealed from the eyes, but revealed to the heart and spirit of anyone who looks with a keen intellectual eye and sees the sparks of light hidden within the clouds of darkness. This dawn, which is visible and revealed in the rebirth of the state of Israel through the wondrous ways of God, calls to us all and says, "Awake, Israel, and go forth to meet the dawn with the flame of God, the flame of faith, and with the torches of light of the Torah of God, which is pure and enlightens the eyes in its broad and far-reaching study. I have seen an end to every purpose, but your commandment is exceedingly broad. Hear, O Israel, and listen. Open your eyes and see the voice of God and his hidden light calling out, House of Jacob. Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. And he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the Torah, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. For this day we have longed, and we continue to long, day by day. Prepare yourselves, so that we may merit to see the light of the Holy One of Israel and be a light to the nations." Gate 5, Chapter 8. The eternity of the Torah. The divine Torah, which is a Torah of truth and a Torah of life, is eternal forever and ever, unchanging and unalterable in its entirety or even in part. This is the nature of truth, that no change in values or circumstances can alter it. Any truth that is temporary or partial is not worthy of being called truth. Change does not affect true beliefs and faith, nor the testimonial commandments, which symbolize, testify, teach, and instill true and correct beliefs and eternal faith. Likewise, the statutes and laws, whose purpose is to bring holiness into all aspects of life and to direct actions and behaviors in the good and upright way, as it is said, "And you shall do what is right." And good in the eyes of the Lord cannot be changed or replaced by changing circumstances and values, for the good and the upright are eternal values, unchanging and everlasting, to which no addition or diminution can ever occur. However, there are commandments that were stated from the outset as conditional, such as those dependent on the land, regarding which it is said, "When you come into the land." Included in this are the temple, the priesthood, and the monarchy, all of which were stated conditionally. But all other commandments not connected to the land and its settlement by Israel are eternal. Thus, the sweet singer of Israel said in his Psalms, "The beginning of your word is truth, and all your righteous judgments endure forever," meaning that the truth of these matters is a faithful guarantee of their eternity. Similarly, God began his words at the revelation at Sinai by saying, "I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. You shall have no other gods before me." The exodus from Egypt, which was confirmed before the eyes of all the world, is faithful testimony to the truth of the existence of the God of the universe, who governs his world with justice and law, kindness and mercy in his wondrous revealed and hidden ways, as it is said, "But the Lord is the true God. He is the living God and the everlasting King." This faithful testimony necessitates the following command: "You shall have no other gods before me," that is, for as long as I exist in the world. And just as my existence is eternal, so too are my commandments eternal. Any change or alteration in the performance of the commandments due to circumstances or changing values, or a false truth proclaimed by false prophets, is a transgression and heresy, equivalent to accepting other gods. For accepting the yoke of the sovereignty of the one God is not merely a matter of words, but of submission and keeping all his commandments with love and eternal faith in the eternity of the giver of the Torah, as it is said by the prophet. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God shall stand forever. Thus ruled Maimonides, it is clear and explicit in the Torah that it is a commandment that stands forever and ever, with no change, no diminishment, and no addition, as it is said. All that I command you, you shall be careful to do. You shall not add to it or take away from it. And it is said, the revealed things belong to us, and for our children forever, to carry out all the words of this Torah. Similarly, it is stated an eternal statute for your generations. And it is also said, it is not in heaven. From here you learn that no prophet is permitted to introduce any new matter from now on. Therefore, if any person, whether from among the nations or from Israel, performs a sign or a wonder and claims that God has sent him to add a commandment or to subtract a commandment, or to interpret one of the commandments in a way we did not hear from Moses, or claims that the commandments which Israel was commanded are not eternal and for all generations, but were only for a specific time, such a person is a false prophet, for he comes to contradict the prophecy of Moses. For the Blessed One, may his name be praised, commanded Moses that this commandment is for us and our children forever, and God is not a man, that he should lie. In these brief words, our teacher and luminary, the Rambam, nullified all arguments that imply the necessity to change or replace the Torah, in part or in whole. The God of Israel gave his Torah to humankind, and to Israel his people, through his faithful prophet, whose prophecy is not to be doubted in his lifetime. The truth of his prophecy was affirmed by all the prophets who came after him, who were recognized as true prophets in their own lives, and even more so after their deaths, for Israel, an eternal people, and for the prophets of all humanity. In this Torah, the giver of the Torah proclaimed that it is an everlasting statute, an eternal statute for your generations. Similarly, Moses the prophet said, the hidden things belong to the Lord our God, but the revealed things are for us and our children forever, to carry out all the words of this Torah. God is not a man, that he should lie, nor a human being, that he should change his mind. Rather, his word endures and is eternal, true, and everlasting. This is the Torah, which Moses set before the children of Israel. In its entirety and in its details, it is the Torah of eternity, the Torah of humanity, and the Torah of life. Its eternal nature endows all who study it and observe its commandments with eternal significance. Thus, our sages established in the blessing over the Torah, who has given us his Torah of truth and implanted within us eternal life, teaching that the Torah of truth, which the God of truth gave to his people, is that which has planted within us eternal life, never to cease or change forever. In summary, human beings are, by their material nature, social creatures, and even more so by the nature of their intellectual soul. Yet humans are also, by their nature and opinions, antisocial. Just as their faces are not alike, so too their opinions are not alike. As Moses said in his prayer, may the Lord, God of the spirits of all flesh, appoint a man over the congregation. He knows the mind and spirit of each individual, which is higher and which is lower, which is inclined to poetry and song, and which is strict, a person of strength and a person of might. Just as their opinions and spirits are not equal, so too their interests are opposed to one another, and therefore they are divided into factions and groups, which are rivals to each other. This is the cause of conflicts between individuals and between nations, kingdom against kingdom. The unifying synthesis that brings together all these opposites and binds humanity into a single, focused, and meaningful entity is the Torah within the person. This is the source of moral and intellectual elevation, raising the individual above material and personal interests to the height of his calling, pure knowledge of God, and the perfection of the world under the sovereignty of the Almighty. The social aspect of humanity, economically, politically, scientifically, and morally, the ultimate desire that unites every person with himself and all people with the general reality, step by step, toward the singularity of the world, places a very heavy responsibility on the individual and the community. All Israel are responsible for one another. If one sins, all are punished. Every person is responsible for all those whom he could have rebuked, but did not, as our sages said. Whoever can protest against the members of his household and does not protest is held accountable for his household, against the people of his city. He is held accountable for his city, for the whole world. He is held accountable for the whole world. Whoever brings merit to the many, no sin comes through him, and whoever causes the many to sin, he is not given the opportunity to repent. Fortunate are the righteous, for not only do they merit for themselves, but they bring merit to their children and their children's children, to the end of all generations. This vision was revealed in Israel from the very beginning of its existence. This people, who left Egypt the house of slavery, approached Mount Sinai in love and affection, and Israel encamped there before the mountain. In every other place it says, they journeyed and they encamped. They journeyed in discord and encamped in discord, but here they were as one heart. Therefore it is said, and Israel encamped there before the mountain. The hidden and concealed light of the soul of Israel, preserved in the heritage of the nation's ancestors and revealed at the splitting of the sea, was expressed in the song of Israel. This is my God, and I will glorify him, the God of my father, and I will exalt him. This ignited the sacred flame of longing for the Torah directly from the divine, and it unified them, making their hearts as one in readiness for the great and eternal task of receiving the Torah. It was this that inspired them to proclaim the wondrous statement, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do and we will hear. And rightly did our sages say, at the moment when Israel put we will do before we will hear, a heavenly voice went forth and said, my children, who revealed to you this secret that the ministering angels use? As it is written, bless the Lord, you his angels, mighty in strength, who do his word, to listen to the voice of his word. First they do, and then they listen. This brief statement is unique in all human history. No person could say it, for it is a phrase unique to the ministering angels, who have no dominion of one person over another, and are not subject to the needs of food for their existence or to human desires and pleasures. Rather, they are created and exist in full strength and capacity to fulfill their angelic mission. Therefore, they can say, we will do, and we will hear. But human beings cannot even say, we will hear and we will do, for they are not certain of their ability or the possibility of accomplishing it. With this statement, Israel accepted the Torah with love and longing of their souls, and they themselves became ministering angels to the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be he, to elevate their souls and to cleave with complete and absolute attachment to the Lord their God, and to shine his light upon all humanity, as it is said, I, the Lord, have called you in righteousness, and I will hold your hand, and I will guard you and make you a covenant for the people, a light for the nations, to open blind eyes, to bring prisoners out of confinement, those who sit in darkness out of the prison house. I am the Lord, that is my name, and my glory I will not give to another. This Torah, which Israel received at Sinai, they brought with them into their land, their inheritance, the Holy Land, where the divine presence and his providence are concentrated, as it is said, a land that the Lord your God cares for. The eyes of the Lord your God are always upon it, from the beginning of the year until at the end of the year. In this holy and blessed land, Israel magnified this Torah through the completion of the Tanakh, the book of books for Israel and for the entire world, by the true and righteous prophets. Here, Israel began to establish the foundations of the oral Torah, through the men of the great assembly and the teachings of the sages, by whose light we walk throughout all the days of our exile and wanderings. We will continue to walk by this light, illuminating our path through life, so that its rays of light and splendor will spread and shine brightly for all nations, until the fulfillment of the vision of our holy prophets, as it is said, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest. The earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. Israel was wondrous at the beginning of its existence, at the sublime and awe-inspiring event of Mount Sinai, and Israel was wondrous in its faithfulness to his word, all that. The Lord has spoken, we will do, and we will hear. Even while dwelling in its land and in its freedom, Israel fought against all its enemies, both near and far, who attacked with all their might and weapons, all declaring in unison, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, so that the name of Israel will be remembered no more. With the same measure of zeal and fury with which the nations attacked Israel with their armies and strength, so too did they attack the Torah of Israel with a storm of battle, whether through philosophical debate or through words of incitement and temptation. Return, return, O Shulamite. The nations say to her, return, return, O Shulamite, join with us and come to us, and we will make you dukes, rulers, and governors. But Israel responds, what will you see in the Shulamite? What inheritance are you giving us? Perhaps like the dance of two camps. Can you give us the greatness that the Holy One, blessed be he, gave us in the wilderness, the banner of the camp of Judah, the banner of the camp of Reuben, the banner of the camp of Ephraim, the banner of the camp of Dan? Can you do this for us? This leads to their statement, a great love did the Holy One, blessed be he, show to Israel, for he made them banners like the ministering angels. These matters are ancient, and this is not the place to elaborate. In all these, Israel stood the test, under harsh and bitter conditions that no person or nation could withstand, and Israel fought and emerged in peace. Of Israel it is said, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have struggled with God and with men, and have prevailed. Now, as the dawn of our redemption breaks upon us, with the establishment of the state of Israel, it is incumbent upon us to lovingly embrace our holy Torah and to take pride in it, both for ourselves and before the eyes of all nations, in the vision of our holy prophets. And it shall come to pass in the latter days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow to it. And many people shall go and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the Torah, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Gate 5, chapter 9. Knowledge of God in human actions and deeds. 1. Faith in the existence of Torah and mitzvah, and in divine reward for human actions and deeds, both revealed and hidden, to give each person according to his ways and the fruit of his deeds, is necessarily connected to faith in God's knowledge of the actions and deeds of human beings. As it is said, great in counsel and mighty in deed, whose eyes are open to all the ways of the children of men, to give to every one according to his ways and according to the fruit of his deeds. And our sages added, Know what is above you, an eye that sees, an ear that hears, and all your deeds are written in a book. 2. The deniers of reward argue and say, How can God know? Is there knowledge in the Most High? How can God know? The nature of knowledge is that the knower is intensified by what is known. The increase of the knower's knowledge is in proportion to the increase of what is known and its contingent circumstances and causal chains, and the perfection of the knower is in the causes of what is known. Every lack of knowledge is a lack of perfection, and every addition of knowledge is in addition to the perfection of the knower. How, then, can such knowledge be attributed to the God of the universe, who is exalted and transcends all such contingent knowledge? And is there knowledge in the Most High? If God knows our actions before they occur, is it possible for humans to act in contradiction to his prior knowledge? If so, we are compelled in our actions according to his knowledge, and there is no longer any place for Torah and mitzvah, for reward and punishment. From these doubts, they conclude and say, The Lord does not see, nor does the God of Jacob understand. Who sees us and who knows us? The Lord has abandoned the earth, and all that happens in this lowly and perishable world, subject to change and transformation, is hidden from his knowledge. Or in other words, he is above knowledge of the particulars because they change with the times. And in the knowledge of the Creator, there is no change, and he does not know you, much less your intentions and actions, and certainly does not hear your prayers or see your movements. 3. To resolve this question, Ibn Ezra says, The truth is that he knows all as a whole, not as particulars. That is, God's knowledge is essentially different in nature and quality from our knowledge. Human knowledge begins with the particular and ascends to the general. Knowledge of details is combined into general concepts and forms the essence of our understanding. However, God's knowledge flows from the general to the particular, and from knowledge of the whole he knows the part. This answer does not fully settle our minds or resolve all the doubts raised in this inquiry. As Ramban aptly said, and Rabbi Abraham said in it, a secret that the children of strangers will be satisfied with. I would add, why should we err in foreign pastures and embrace the bosom of a stranger? Let us turn to the source of life, the wellspring of our Torah and prophets, and there we will find true and justified solutions. Isaiah the prophet says in his prophecies, Woe to those who seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord, and their works are in the dark, and they say, Who sees us? Who knows us? Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay. For shall the work say of him that made it, He made me not? Or shall the thing framed say of him that framed it, He had no understanding? 5. Those who deny God's knowledge of the actions and deeds of human beings remove the divine light that is present in all and illuminates everything, and make themselves into a dark and lowly creature, and their entire environment is shrouded in a misty darkness that the eye cannot penetrate. Out of their darkness, they see everything as dark before them, like a blind and deaf person from birth, who imagines that the entire world is blind and deaf like them. Moreover, they add to their heresy by claiming that humanity, among all living things, plants, and inanimate objects, is not the handiwork of the God of the universe, but rather is a product of. A person is obligated by those who preceded him. Within him are combined forms and traits from his father and mother, his relatives, and qualities from the air, lands, foods, and waters, as well as the forces of the celestial spheres. All of this ultimately traces back to the first cause, not due to any intention on its part. From this fundamental error, in which the created being says to its creator, You did not make me, comes another mistake. The creation says to its creator, You did not understand. By placing impenetrable barriers between God and humanity, they dwell in darkness and perform their deeds in obscurity. They say, Who sees us? Who knows us? Yet the facts and events, the changes and transformations in our lives and throughout all creation, contradict them, illuminating our eyes to see the hidden hand of God and to hear the divine voice echoing from the depths of our souls, through which all acts of creation are sustained and conducted. Among these especially so is the human being, fashioned by the Creator, who made him in the image and likeness of God. Lebanon will be turned into a fruitful field, and the fruitful field will be regarded as a forest. On that day, the deaf will hear the words of a book, and out of gloom and darkness the eyes of the blind will see. The prophet Isaiah continues to demonstrate the necessity of knowing God in the lives of individuals from the reality of divine reward. For divine reward is not merely a matter of faith, but a matter of reality. Those with dulled hearts and closed minds are not worthy to perceive it, but it is a consistent principle. The humble will increase their joy in the Lord, and the poor among men will rejoice in the Holy One of Israel. For the ruthless shall come to nothing, the scoffer will cease, and all who are alert to do evil will be cut off. The existence of these opposites, which cannot be attributed to blind nature, that the humble and poor increase in joy and gladness in the Holy One of Israel, while the ruthless, scoffers, and evildoers perish and are cut off, both individually and collectively, serves as faithful testimony to the knowledge of God through his actions and his reward. After him comes the prophet Jeremiah, who says, "Am I only a God who is near, says the Lord, and not a God who is far away? Can a person hide in secret places so that I do not see him, says the Lord? Do I not fill the heavens and the earth, says the Lord?" The lack of knowledge among people is caused by the distances of time and space between the knower and the known. Our knowledge, which is acquired through the senses, or even through reason, is limited and confined to the boundaries of place and time. To the extent that our intellect develops and our knowledge increases, new gates of light and broader horizons open before us, enabling us to know the hidden and the unknown in the uncertain future, and to look beyond the opaque barriers that obscure our knowledge toward the great light that fills all worlds, where no place is, devoid of it at all, and toward the God of the universe, who brings all into being by his existence and illuminates it with his pure hidden light. All is revealed and known before him. What was and what will be, the beginning and the end. There is no darkness and no shadow, no distances of time before him. Am I only a God who is near, and not a God who is far away? There are no impenetrable or dark barriers. Can a person hide in secret places so that I do not see him? Do I not fill the heavens and the earth? King David expressed similar ideas in his Psalms. You know my sitting and my rising, you understand my thoughts from afar. You have enclosed me behind and before, and laid your hand upon me. You, who created man by your handiwork in your image, know my actions in the present, and understand my thoughts from afar, for the near and distant future. Such knowledge is too wondrous for me. It is too lofty. I cannot attain it. Yet your presence is everywhere. If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I take the wings of the dawn and dwell at the end of the sea, even there your hand will guide me, and your right hand will hold me. Even darkness is not dark to you. The night shines like the day. Darkness is as light. I thank you, for I am awesomely, wondrously made. Your works are wonderful, and my soul knows it very well. This question is deep and wondrous. The works of God are wondrous, and so is his knowledge. How fortunate we are to know and marvel, unlike the foolish and ignorant who have no such wondrous questions before them, or those who, thinking themselves wise, dismiss them with superficiality and disbelief. But my soul knows deeply, and this inner knowledge does not require proofs, nor is it negated by any proof. Just as we do not know the essence or quality of the soul, yet we recognize its existence, so too we submit to its original and true knowledge, even when it surpasses our understanding. In even clearer terms, the psalmist rises against those who deny the knowledge of God, which stems from the stubbornness of the heart and love of gain, stifling the faithful inner awareness, and says, they kill the widow and the stranger, and murder the orphans, and they say, the Lord does not see, the God of Jacob does not understand. With biting sarcasm and restrained anger, he says, understand, you senseless among the people, fools, when will you gain wisdom? The denial of knowledge comes from ignorance and foolishness regarding the true concept of knowledge. For knowledge, as it relates to humans, is the knowledge of tangible things in their particulars and their generalities, from the part to the whole and from the whole to the part, through differentiation and generalization. In other words, the perception of sensory impressions photographically, and the perception of sounds phonographically. This form of knowledge is also found in all animals. The ox knows its owner, and the donkey its master's crib. However, this knowledge is added to us because it is external to us, and it is formed in its specific cells according to the accumulation of sensory impressions and sounds. But the knowledge ascribed to humans is not the sensory knowledge acquired by feeling and impressed upon memory, but rather intellectual knowledge, which is aroused by sensory knowledge. When we see and hear visible and audible things, which are then formed in the intellect, they themselves become abstract concepts removed from materiality and products of understanding that are not subject to time and space. Instead, they are unified with their concepts infinitely, and the spiritual intellectual world is, in essence, such. For a person possesses spiritual faculties, knowledge that preserves and refines. And the intellect learns through reasoning and logic, judging from scientific experience and reflection on the past and future. The more one understands, the more clearly and deeply one sees, hears, distinguishes, listens, and pays attention, combining sensory impressions into general concepts and integrating those concepts into ever-expanding generalities. Heaven to its heights, earth to its depths, a beginning with no beginning before it and an end with no end after it. In this infinite knowledge, one and one's knowledge become inseparable. This is the true meaning of knowledge ascribed to humans, through which, in miniature and by way of analogy, we glimpse the knowledge of God. However, while human knowledge is drawn from worldly existence and refined into general concepts, God, who is the source of knowledge and who grants humans understanding, sees both our hidden and revealed selves. He hears and listens to our voices and the stirrings of our hearts, and with wondrous knowledge beyond our understanding, he knows what is happening and what is yet to happen. He judges and rewards each person according to their deeds and their merit. As it is said, great in counsel and mighty in deed, whose eyes are open to all the ways of mankind, to give each person according to their ways and according to the fruit of their actions. Our sages address this profound question in a very brief statement full of deep meaning, saying, all is foreseen, yet permission is granted, and the world is judged with goodness. Everything is foreseen by him, like a watchman standing in a high place without any barrier or partition to obstruct his sight or hearing. Everything is visible to him as a spread-out garment, without folds or creases. Nothing is hidden or concealed from him, but all is seen and heard. From his observation, he knows also the purpose and direction, the power and the capability, and permission is granted. God's knowledge does not remove free will from those who act wickedly, nor does it compel or force a person to do good or evil, to be wicked or righteous, and the world is judged with goodness. The attribute of justice is the attribute of absolute goodness, to give to a person and to the world according to their deeds and the fruit of their actions. Whether the reward is punishment or kindness, this is the attribute of goodness. All is foreseen, yet permission is granted. These two opposites are a profound and wondrous paradox, but they are true and correct. The words of our teacher and guide, Maimonides of blessed memory, are exceedingly just, as he says, our efforts to know how this can be, as if we could comprehend and become him and attain his knowledge. Just as a person cannot grasp or comprehend the mind of the Creator, we do not have the ability to know how the Holy One, blessed be he, knows all creatures and their actions. But we know without a doubt that a person's actions are in their own hands, and God does not compel or decree upon a person to act in a certain way. This is not known to us only through the acceptance of faith, but through clear proofs from the words of wisdom. Therefore, it is stated in prophecy that a person is judged according to their deeds, whether good or bad. And this is the principle upon which all the words of prophecy depend. The Ravad, in his critical glosses, objected and wrote, the author did not act in the manner of the sages, for no one should begin a matter without knowing how to complete it. He began with questions and doubts and returned to faith. It would have been better for him to leave the matter to the simplicity of the simple, and not to arouse their hearts or leave their minds in doubt. But I say that our teacher, the Rambam, acted in the manner of the prophets and sages, who raised questions and doubts, and returned them to religious faith and reasoned proofs. Knowing the wonder, even when we do not know how it is resolved, because we recognize the weakness of our understanding compared to the existence of God and his wondrous and exalted wisdom, this is true knowledge that we must know and teach. So said David in his Psalms, I praise you, for I am awesomely, wondrously made. Your works are wonderful, and my soul knows it very well. Our pious teacher, Rabbi Obaya, added to the solution of this difficult question and said, the soul said, what I have found in books regarding necessity, decree, dominion, and will is that all belongs to God in everything he created, mineral, plant, animal, and human, as it is written. Whatever God desires, he does in heaven and on earth. There are many similar statements, all of which indicate that humans and other living creatures were prepared by the Creator for the adornment of this world. And if he moves them, they move by his will and power and ability, and if he leaves them, they rest from their actions, etc. All the early sages in their books agree on this matter without dispute. But we find in the Torah something that disagrees, which teaches that the actions seen from a person are given to their control, and they choose them of their own will, and they come into being by their desire and choice, etc. This matter is difficult for me, and the contradiction between these two concepts is very hard. To this question, Rabbeinu Bahya responds, Reason says, there is nothing in the difficulty you mentioned regarding the contradiction between these two matters found in the books that is greater than what we see in practice by observation. We see from human actions that sometimes they are by a person's will and desire, and sometimes not by their will. This shows that the Creator, may he be exalted, has dominion over him, and that he is under his control. He permits what he wishes and withholds what he does not wish. This can be seen in a person's ability to speak, hear, see, etc. The debates among the sages regarding the reconciliation between necessity and justice are lengthy, and they said, the correct approach is to act as one who believes that actions are given to a person, and they are rewarded and punished for them, etc. This view is closest to the path of salvation from all that has been mentioned before, for it is true and correct to admit our ignorance. In this matter compared to the wisdom of the Creator, blessed be He, due to the weakness of our understanding and our limited knowledge. In our ignorance, there are aspects of goodness that are hidden from us, etc. A close analogy is what we see regarding weak eyesight, which is of no use in sunlight, unless a thin screen is placed between it and the eyes, etc. Furthermore, in most physical crafts, there are actions. If we did not see them with our own eyes and only heard about them, we would quickly disbelieve the one who told us about them, such as the astrolabe, which is the balance of astronomers, etc. Many things are unknown, and their nature has not become clear to our minds or entered our thoughts, etc. If someone told us about them and we had not seen them, we would quickly deny and refute their words. This is due to our limited knowledge of the secrets of creation and our weak understanding of the roots of existence, their consequences, their nature, and their unique powers. If someone is ignorant, as described, about something constantly before them, it is no wonder that they do not know the workings of the decree and justice of the Creator, may He be exalted, which are hidden and far beyond what we have mentioned, to no end. Of this David said, O Lord, my heart was not proud, nor were my eyes haughty. Surely I have calmed and quieted my soul, like a weaned child with its mother. My soul is with me as a weaned child. With these words, our prophets and sages resolved this profound question, and enlightened our eyes to know the wonders of the all-knowing one, who sees, and knows our open and hidden matters, our thoughts and our actions, who illuminates our darkness and leads us on a proper and upright path. Woe to those who, out of malice or ignorance and foolishness, deny this faith, and lower themselves to the level of plants or animals, who have knowledge only within a limited and unclear scope. These are those who lack God within them, and in their world, they have nothing but their perishing bodies and immediate needs. They always ask themselves, is God among us or not? But happy are those with faith, who believe and feel that God is among us and surrounds us with His hidden light, drawing us closer to His radiance. Gate 5, Chapter 10. Divine Providence. The commandments of the Torah and their purposes, both for the individual and for the nation, testify to divine providence in the world, not only as a matter of reward for those who observe the commandments and punishment for those who transgress, but also for the settlement and existence of the world through justice, law, kindness, righteousness, and mercy. For we find in the Torah warnings and punishments regarding the affliction of widows and orphans. Similarly, it is written, for the Lord your God is the God of gods and the Lord of lords, who executes justice for the orphan and widow, and loves the stranger to give him food and clothing. Therefore he is called Father of orphans and Judge of widows, God in his holy dwelling. And it is said, the rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are justice, a God of faithfulness and without iniquity, righteous and upright is he. All the holy prophets prophesied about nations and kingdoms, and about the vision of the end of days, a world entirely of peace and true knowledge of God. This is a necessary concept, and is tied to the belief in the creation of the world. Since there is a creator, it is necessary that the one who created it also leads it with his constant providence toward its ultimate purpose, as he foretold through his prophets regarding the vision of the end of days. The error of heresy, upon which deniers of faith in providence rely, is the distortion of justice, and the apparent randomness that seems, at first glance, to govern the world both in its details and as a whole. This argument is the main topic of the philosophical debate between Job and his friends. Job, recognizing himself as a righteous and blameless person in all his ways, looks at his suffering and pain and sees no divine providence guiding the world according to reward, but rather that randomness rules everything and does not distinguish between the righteous and the wicked. If the scourge slays suddenly, he mocks the despair of the innocent. Randomness places sinners and traitors in positions of leadership and judgment, increasing wickedness and violence in the land. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covers the faces of its judges. If not, then who is he? As a result, he concludes, I will be wicked. Why then should I labor in vain? Even if I wash myself with snow water and cleanse my hands with lye, yet you would plunge me into the ditch, and my own clothes would abhor me. Job is not satisfied with Zophar's answer. The triumph of the wicked is short, and the joy of the godless but for a moment. Instead, he cries out and asks, why do the wicked live, become old, and become mighty in power? They spend their days in prosperity. One dies in his full strength, wholly at ease and secure, and another dies in bitterness of soul, never having tasted prosperity. Lest you say, their fortune will not continue after them. But Who will repay him for what he has done? With these arguments, Job sought to overturn the entire system, to deny the existence of divine providence, as well as the existence of divine Torah and commandments, and the reward and punishment that follow them. After him, all the philosophers who consider themselves wise follow in his footsteps, saying, when a storm rages at sea and lifts up its waves, or when a hurricane rages on land and uproots mountains with its power and demolishes buildings with its might, and, as a result, a ship sinks in the heart of the sea and all its passengers drown, or houses collapse on their inhabitants and all inside perish, righteous and wicked, innocent and guilty alike. This proves, they claim, that all life on earth is equally subject to chance and its accidents. Just like the unfortunate mouse caught by the cat, or the small ant that dies under the weight of a falling stone, so too is the fate of the prophet who was devoured by a lion, or who boarded a ship and drowned with it, or who was killed under a collapsing building. In their view, divine providence cannot be related to random, irregular occurrences that affect individual plants, animals, and humans, both speaking and non-speaking. In their opinion, divine providence applies only to heavenly matters, which follow their course and form without change or loss, and to natural earthly matters that proceed in a fixed order. Providence is particular in these for maintaining their species in gradual refinement until they reach their highest form, humankind in its species and its most distinguished intellectual individuals who are capable of leading and thinking about what is necessary for the survival of the individual and preservation of the species according to their level of intellect. In contrast, there are those who, while standing on the foundation of faith in divine providence, hold a false and superficial faith and add to the confusion with foolish and absurd ideas that the soul recoils from. These, the Mutazilites say, even the mouse caught by the cat, the ox slaughtered by humans, the falling of a leaf from a tree or a stone from a mountain, and the killing of ants or a person as a result, all are in the wisdom of the highest providence in order to reward them in the world to come. However, our understanding is too limited to recognize God's wisdom and the nature of his goodness. And those of the Asherites say, all creatures, including humans, act and move by the decree of the highest providence. Humans have no free will to act or move, and there is no randomness in the world. Everything is either necessary or impossible by God's decree. The existence of Torah and commandments, happiness and peace, or disaster and terror, and the existence of those born with defects, all are by God's decree and will. And for all these, they say, thus God willed it, and there is no injustice in this, for it is fitting according to God's law to afflict with suffering one who has not sinned, and to reward the sinner. On all these approaches, the prophet Habakkuk says in his prophecy, behold, his soul is puffed up. It is not upright in him, but the righteous shall live by his faith. All those whose souls are not upright strive to reach that which is beyond their understanding, and stumble and descend into the depths of ignorance. But the righteous, who stand on the foundation of pure faith, seek the truth, and find in it pleasant and eternal life, saying, I will bless the Lord who has advised me. Even at night my heart instructs me. I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand. I shall not be moved. Therefore my heart is glad, and my glory rejoices. My flesh also shall rest in safety. For you will not abandon my soul to the grave, nor will you allow your faithful one to see decay. You make known to me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. This question stood before our prophets and sages, beginning with Moses, master of all prophets, and continued by his disciples, the prophets and rabbis, in the manner appropriate for those who seek knowledge of God and his ways from the God of truth. Consider, even Moses, the master of the prophets, to whom the secrets of God were revealed, stood in prayer and supplication and asked the God of the universe, please make known to me your ways, that I may know you. After him, his disciples, the prophets, said, why does the way of the wicked prosper? Why are all who deal treacherously at ease? You have planted them, and they have taken root. They grow and bear fruit. You are near in their mouth, but far from their heart. Jeremiah, the prophet, is not envious of the prosperity of the wicked. Rather, he is astonished that they commit their wickedness in the name of God. You are near in their mouths, when they commit oppression and violence in the name of God's law, but they are far from truly knowing God. The prophet Habakkuk establishes at the outset of his question a fundamental premise from which he does not deviate, saying, you are too pure of eyes to see evil and cannot look upon wrongdoing. Why do you look upon traitors and remain silent when the wicked swallows up one more righteous than he? The prophet's questions are not motivated by jealousy of the wicked's prosperity, nor by a desire for heresy or rejection of responsibility, nor by arrogance or pride. Rather, it is their zeal for justice and true judgment, their burning passion for the God of justice and truth, that gives rise to their question a question expressed as a prayer to understand the ways of God and his just governance of the world. This inquiry is broad and profound for rationalists who rely on their intellect and deep understanding, and it is even deeper for us, who are connected to the Torah of Israel and believe in the existence of a divine law, in which all the promised rewards are linked to material and worldly prosperity in our lives on earth, both individually and as a nation. The daily, incidental, and natural phenomena we encounter only increase the depth and scope of this inquiry and demand its resolution. Gate 5, Chapter 11. The perspective of Rabbi Judah Halevi. The seeker of truth, Rabbi Judah Halevi, says, actions can be divided into 4 types: divine, natural, accidental, or volitional. The divine actions stem from the first cause. They have no other cause than the will of God, blessed be He. The natural actions arise from intermediate causes prepared for them, which bring them to their complete purpose, so long as nothing prevents one of the 3 types. Accidental actions also arise from intermediate causes, but they occur by chance, not by nature, order, or intention, and are not prepared for completion. They reach a point and remain there. Volitional actions are caused by a person's will at the time of choice. Choice is among the intermediate causes, and the chain of causes for choice extends back to the first cause, without coercion, because possibility exists, and the soul is placed between 2 options to do as it wishes. King David expressed 3 types of causes for death, saying, if the Lord strikes him, the divine cause, or his day comes and he dies; the natural cause, or he goes down to battle and perishes; the accidental cause. Since new events must be either divine or from the other categories, and it is possible for all to be divine, the masses chose to attribute everything to God, as this strengthens faith. The essence of Rabbi Judah Halevi's words is, worldly phenomena are divided according to their causes into 2 categories. A. Intermediate causes, natural, accidental, and volitional, which develop through a chain of causation from one cause to another until the first cause, and all ultimately return to God through this chain. B. Phenomena and innovations that occur by the decree of God, where all natural, accidental, and volitional causes fulfill his decree. By this, the question of divine providence is essentially resolved. However, a second question still stands before us. If natural and accidental causes govern the lives of individuals and communities, affecting both righteous and wicked, sinners and pious alike, how can divine reward be maintained in human life? To answer this, he says, however, one must distinguish between nation and nation, person and person, time and time, place and place, and other circumstances, and one will see that divine innovations were generally seen only in a specific land, namely, the Holy Land, and among a specific people, the people of Israel. In those times, under those particular conditions, which were connected to the observance of commandments and statutes, every desire of the heart was fulfilled when things were properly ordered, and every evil appeared when things were corrupted. In times of corruption, natural and accidental factors were of no help, and in times of proper order, they caused no harm. Therefore, the people of Israel were a proof among all nations against the heretics, who saw the doctrine of Epicurus in his claim that all things happen by chance, for in Israel one does see the intention of a purposeful cause. This testimony of divine providence, in a different style and with even more conclusive proof, is expressed in the words of the prophet Isaiah, do not fear, nor be afraid. Have I not told you from that time and declared it? You are my witnesses. Is there a God besides me? Indeed, there is no rock. I know not any. The existence of Israelite prophecy, which foretold the future from the beginning, and whose words never failed, is further and decisive evidence of God's providence over his world. Israel and its prophets are the witnesses to this supreme providence, which guides the entire universe and humankind, created in his image with wisdom and justice. There is no God besides me. All the forces and powers of nature cannot alter the decree of his supreme providence. There is no rock, I know not any. All the strong and solid causes, and all accidental occurrences, are not hidden from his knowledge and oversight, rather, all stand ready to fulfill his decree. Yet a third question remains, the tranquility of the wicked and the suffering of the righteous. If everything happens under providence, whether through a chain of causes or by direct decree, why do we see righteous and pious people suffering pain and poverty, while the wicked and sinners rule, prosper, and enjoy great wealth? To this, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi adds, the heretic and his followers are called those who pursue pleasure, because their view is that pleasure is the ultimate goal, and that it is simply the good. The one who follows the Torah seeks, through the commandments, to be honored in God's eyes, surrenders all his desires to the Blessed One, and seeks to learn if he is truly pious, or seeks signs and honor if he is a prophet, or the general public desires the matters mentioned in the Torah regarding times, places, and actions, and does not pay attention to natural and accidental causes. Know that harm is kept away from him, either through learning that prepares him to avoid that harm, or through the honor given to him at the time of adversity. However, accidental good is not withheld from the wicked, and certainly not from the pious. The prosperity of the wicked comes from these accidental and natural causes, and nothing prevents their harm when it comes. But the pious succeed through those same accidental causes, and they are protected from harm. In these words, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi establishes a fundamental principle that worldly goods are not the true reward sought. Rather, the true reward is that the person who fulfills the commandments surrenders his desires to God, his maker, and is honored and accepted before God, his creator and sustainer. Every person, righteous or wicked, is subject to natural and accidental causes. The wicked are not deprived of worldly goods and pleasures that result from natural or accidental causes, but all, both righteous and wicked, receive their share from God's good blessing in the world. The advantage of the righteous who follow God's ways is that they are not alarmed by the evils that befall them through natural or accidental causes, and they trust that they will be delivered from them, either through Torah learning or through God's special providence and attachment to them to save them in times of trouble. Similar to this are the words of Nachmanides, who says, God's knowledge, which is his providence in the lower world, is to preserve the general order, and people are subject to chance until their appointed time arrives. But with his pious ones, he pays special attention to know them individually, so that his protection always clings to them, and his knowledge and remembrance never depart from them, as it is written, he does not withdraw his eyes from the righteous. The fundamental principle of Rabbi Yehuda Halevi is entirely consistent with the words of the poet Asaph, who says, Yet I am always with you, you hold my right hand. You guide me with your counsel, and afterward you will take me to glory. Whom have I in heaven? And with you I desire nothing on earth. The true good sought by the person of Torah is closeness to God, a constant closeness in life and in death, and not any other earthly good. My flesh and my heart fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Earthly and physical evils, which are fleeting, do not alter the essence of true and eternal good, which is closeness to God. In this spirit, the author of Sefer Haikarim says, the righteous and the wicked both experience good or bad, stemming from the nature of existence and decay, or from general providence over the nation and the state, as long as the wicked are not so evil as to overturn the system from good to bad, and as long as the righteous are not so perfect as to overturn the system, or unless they are subject to special providence to be saved from harm. Maimonides, of blessed memory, says in response to this question, the existence of the world and humankind is of the utmost perfection and goodness that flows from the God of the universe, who in his goodness created and formed the world, in the greatest possible perfection according to its nature. Out of God's great kindness and goodness, he created humanity as the choicest of all creatures, set them apart and perfected them to a very high degree, and provided them generously and equally with all their essential needs for existence and understanding, and treats them with kindness and mercy, as Scripture says, all the paths of the Lord are kindness and truth. The Lord is good to all, and his mercy is over all his works. The evils that befall a person in his lifetime are indeed many and persistent, while the good is momentary and rare. Therefore, those narrow-minded individuals who view all of creation solely through the lens of their own selves think that the whole world was created for their service and pleasure, and they protest against the creator of Genesis and the existence of humanity, which they see as a bad existence filled with pain and suffering. But this view is madness, brought on by the abundance of evil in the world. If a person were to examine reality and understand it, and recognize how small his share is in it, the truth would become clear to him that humanity is more precious than anything else in our lower world, and at the same time, its existence is a great good and kindness from God in that he set it apart and perfected it. Most of the evils that occur are brought about by ourselves, by our own actions and choices. The evils that befall a person in his life are not a condition of creation itself, which is intrinsically good and blessed in all its details, but rather they result from these three causes. A, the nature of existence and decay, meaning due to the material composition from which a person is made. The nature of this materiality is subject to occurrences and events such as the existence of defects and missing limbs from the time of formation, or being harmed by changes caused by polluted air or the sinking of places. This type of evil is very rare in quantity and occurs only at very distant intervals. For thousands of years, states and cities remain in their prosperity and flourishing, and thousands of people are born and live in perfect health. The destruction of states due to natural changes and the existence of people born with defects are only rare occurrences over time, and those born with defects are a very tiny fraction. B. The second type of evil that befalls a person arises from his own negative traits, the jealousy of one person toward his fellow, the love of power and conquest, authority and victory. These are the causes of wars between individuals and between nations. They bring with them destruction and loss, bereavement and annihilation, bloodshed and wounds that cause pain and permanent disabilities. Even the righteous and innocent cannot escape them. These evils are more numerous and more prevalent than those of the first kind, but they do not spread throughout the entire state nor to most parts of civilization. C. The third type of evil that befalls individuals and nations stems from the instinctual force within humans, which does not suffice with what one has or what is necessary for existence. When a person chases after luxuries and pleasures, indulgence and drunkenness, he corrupts his body and soul. For excessive desire in food, drink, and sexual relations, and their consumption in excessive amounts, in improper order or with poor quality, is the cause of all bodily illnesses and pains. These, in turn, cause mental illnesses, for the health of the soul follows, to a certain extent, the state of the body and its health. Becoming accustomed to the many and corrupt desires of the heart creates a strong tendency in the soul to long for unnecessary things, not for the preservation of the individual nor the species. These are the most numerous evils that befall a person in his life, about which it is said, "A man's own folly perverts his way, and his heart rages against the Lord." In these words, Maimonides seeks to answer the pessimists and the self-centered who, in their narrow outlook, see all reality, and especially human existence with its choice and dignity, as a perpetual, unceasing curse. But let us pause and ask ourselves, can the views of pessimists and deniers of Providence be reconciled with these words, or will their arguments and denials only increase? They might say to us, indeed, worldly reality is a stream of delights, flowing abundantly and generously for all living things equally and gently, a river of milk and honey. But what benefit is there in this abundance if it also nourishes and multiplies snakes and scorpions, whose hiss releases deadly venom, and whose sting burns and penetrates to the heart? What benefit is there in the vast treasures of nature if they also sustain ravenous wolves and cruel leopards, who trample and devour without mercy, taking pleasure in the agony and suffering of their weak prey? And what benefit is there in the springs of blessing if they raise up human beings whose lives are filled with war and vengeance, whose tongues are poisoned arrows, whose claws tear, whose feet trample the weak? What is the value of a human whose life is constant conflict, person against person, nation against nation, state against state? One works by the sweat of his brow and saves for his old age, while another covets and envies, robs and plunders, or in anger and jealousy destroys all the meager possessions of the poor and innocent? Indeed, these are the results of man's evil traits, inherent in his very nature. But the question remains, why was man created with such negative traits? And if it was impossible to create him in a more appropriate angelic form, it would have been better had he not been created at all. It cannot be denied, worldly reality, in all its forms and colors, is beautiful and pleasant, providing satisfaction and delight. Humanity conquers all and enjoys abundant pleasures. Yet these delights, in their sweetness, entice us to become gluttonous and bring upon us all sorts of pains and troubles, like a cruel trap that ensnares with its beautiful, tasty seeds the birds of the sky and the creatures of nature. And again, the question arises in all its sharpness, who placed within man this insatiable, instinctual force, before which all justice and morality are pushed aside, which causes jealousy, hatred, and unending, destructive bloodshed? Why was all the world's beauty and pleasantness created to ensnare us, creating within us a source of diseases and pains, which are angels of death? Natural evils are indeed few in their incidence and limited in their locations. But even these few evils can destroy the labor of thousands of years and countless people, turning a flourishing and growing nation into a wasteland, a heap of ruins that terrifies and horrifies all who see it, who gnash their teeth and shake their heads at the sight of devastation and destruction, bereavement and orphanhood that follow in their wake. There are indeed many causes of evil, and the vast majority are caused by our own bad traits or our gluttonous desires. But ultimately, humanity, with its traits and qualities, is the product of creation and choice. When all these evils combine with their causes, they are indeed numerous, and the good and pleasant is but a tiny grain, swallowed and nullified in the vast sea of many and constant evils. What, then, have we gained from Maimonides' answers? Why should we deny the Torah's truth? Scripture proclaims, "I call heaven and earth to witness against you today. I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore, choose life." Life and death, blessing and curse, or the sword and the book, as the sages say, descended intertwined from heaven. The abundance of blessing and goodness, the light and radiance that the God of the universe bestowed upon his world and his goodness, are wrapped in many thick clouds of darkness and hidden within many bitter, impenetrable shells. Within the very essence of goodness lies the potential for improvement and perfection, refinement and purification, and, in contrast, the great potential for filth and impurity, which are the shells encasing the seeds of life. The soul, the divine breath within man, the intellect, understanding, and knowledge that emanate from the source of life, the the source of wisdom, understanding, and the ultimate good, unmatched by any other good, are also wrapped in thick, sealed partitions. They give the human being the power to break through the shells, to clarify the sparks, and to reveal to himself and others the inner light dwelling in the depths of his soul, and the encompassing light hidden throughout all creation. The possibility of choice given to man is the greatest goodness that the Holy One, blessed be he, bestowed upon the work of his hands, the human being created in his image. In the freedom of choice lies all the delight and joy of life, while in servitude lies the most terrible curse, making life not worth living. This free choice, the greatest gift God gave to humanity, necessarily required the existence of both good and evil, that is, the possibility of choosing to turn good into evil, or, conversely, to turn evil into good, to turn the book into the sword, a sharp blade that stirs up conflict among nations and states, and the sword into plowshares and a plow, a productive force that brings blessing and happiness in its wings. Just as in the great world, so too in the small world, the human being, there are, by their very nature, traits of desire, aversion, love and hatred, mercy and cruelty, pride and humility, and so on. All of these are good and beneficial in their proper place and time, in their measure and limits, and the possibility is given to the person himself to choose and create one's form and character, the course of their thoughts and perspectives, to judge oneself, to merit or to guilt. Fortunate is the person who, from all of reality and from the powers of their soul, chooses the good and transforms evil into good. This is the doctrine of humanity. A person is a being with free will, possessing power over themselves and ruling over the forces of nature. Yet divine providence, in its will to sustain the world and its species and individuals according to the ways of justice and righteousness, watches with its providential eye over both the collective and the individual, judging all with justice and fairness. Maimonides, in this principle, resolves the question of the existence of the world and of humanity, which is an absolute good emanating from the source of goodness. Yet the sharp question of divine providence in guiding all of reality still stands before him. In his resolution, Rambam states, the view of the Torah of Israel opposes the view of the Asharites, who claim that everything happens by divine decree, and that man is not free in his choices, but rather is commanded and receives reward according to God's will. It also opposes the view of the Mutazilites, who believe that everything happens with a wisdom hidden from our understanding and perception, in order to reward good in exchange for suffering and the hardships of life. Rather, the view of the Torah of Israel is that divine providence is based on justice and righteousness, as it is written, the rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are justice, and as the sages said, there is no death without sin, and no suffering without transgression. But in Leviticus Rabbah and Ecclesiastes Rabbah, this statement is brought as an accepted law, and Rambam holds that natural death in humans can occur without sin, but unnatural death caused by accidental factors only occurs due to sin. This aligns with the words of the sages who said, the 4 types of capital punishment have not been abolished. One who deserves stoning may fall from a roof or be mauled by a beast. One who deserves execution may be delivered to the government or attacked by bandits. One who deserves strangulation may drown in a river or die of diphtheria. In the measure that a person measures, so it is measured to them. And the Holy One, blessed be he, does not withhold the reward of any creature, and even one who is not commanded but acts, receives good reward for their good deeds. Some sages have said, afflictions of love, that it is possible, according to reason, that a person might suffer without having sinned, but in order to increase their reward. This is a solitary opinion, without support from the Torah or the prophets, and there is no verse in the Torah for this concept. It should be noted that indeed the sages derive this from the verse, for whom the Lord loves he reproves, as a father the son, in whom he delights. But afflictions of love are not to increase reward, but rather to guide the afflicted person toward the highest perfection. There is also a foundation for this in the Torah, and you shall know in your heart that just as a man disciplines his son, so the Lord your God disciplines you. A father's discipline is not measured by the attribute of justice, but by the attribute of love, intended to guide and direct. Thus, there is a foundation for this view in the scriptures, and it is accepted without dispute. This view is based on the saying of the sages, and God caused it to happen to his hand. What is the verse referring to? To 2 people who killed a person, one accidentally and one intentionally, etc. God brings them to the same inn. The one who killed intentionally is killed, and the one who killed accidentally is exiled. From the promises of the Torah and the stories of the prophets, we learn that divine providence is present in everything, as it is said, and your land shall not yield its produce, and the trees of the land shall not yield their fruit. And I will send among you the beasts of the field, and they shall bereave you. So they took Jonah and cast him into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging, and the Lord prepared a great fish to swallow Jonah, and it is explicitly written, "But for your lifeblood I will require a reckoning. From every beast I will require it." Ibn Ezra and Nachmanides explained, "I will command another to kill, and any animal that kills a person will itself be killed." In fact, we find this matter debated. Rabbi Elazar says, "No one is held accountable for this person except another person like him." Rabbi Natan says, "Even a wolf or a dog, even a stick or a strap, even barren trees." We will clarify our view on this matter below. Rambam adds, "Our Torah only addresses matters concerning human beings. As for the issue of reward for animals that cannot speak, this is not part of our faith at all, nor did the sages of the Talmud mention it." However, some of the Geonim, upon hearing it from the Mutazilites, found it agreeable and believed it. Based on these foundational principles, Rambam concludes, divine providence is indeed attached and connected to our world, but it is specific to human beings in all matters of their individuality, and all that happens to them, whether good or bad, follows divine justice and reward. But plants and non-speaking animals are subject to divine providence only as species, for their species' existence, not as individuals. All events that happen to them are purely by chance, not because anything is hidden from God or because weariness is attributed to Him, but because providence follows intellect, which is a perfect intellect, to the species to which the intellectual influence adheres. According to the degree that one attains intellect, so too does providence reach them. Therefore, if a ship sinks and those inside it perish, or if a roof collapses on someone in a house, the sinking of the ship and the falling of the roof happened by chance, but the presence of the people on the ship or in the house was not by chance, but by divine will according to justice in his judgments, the order of which our minds cannot comprehend. Rambam disagrees with the opinion that God's providence over people is only general or by species and not individual, and he refutes this view by arguing that the existence of a species is an intellectual, spiritual existence, whose reality is only in the intellect. And providence does not apply to an intellectual existence, but rather providence is individual for each member of the species according to their level of understanding, piety, and uprightness. But fools and sinners, by their foolishness, are classified together with animals. They are like beasts, and thus it is easy to kill them, and it is even commanded to do so for a purpose. Regarding providence over the righteous and pious, it is said, "He guards the feet of his pious ones," while those who are distant from him are like those who walk in darkness, and the wicked are silenced in darkness, and there is no doubt that they will stumble and die. From Rambam's words, it follows that fools and sinners are left, like other animals, to chance in their success and misfortune, and killing them for a beneficial purpose is a commandment. In my opinion, this view has no basis in the Torah, according to the Torah's perspective. Success or disaster for human beings, whether they are wicked or righteous, wise or foolish, is all determined by the decree of divine providence, which observes all the actions of people, giving each person according to his ways and as the fruit of his deeds. As Scripture says, "And I will surely hide my face." This means the concealment of the revealed presence of the divine that dwells among his people Israel, as opposed to "May the Lord make his face shine upon you." This is also the meaning of "the wicked are silenced in darkness." However, this does not mean the removal of divine providence and abandonment to chance like all other living creatures. Similarly, it is impossible to agree with the view of Maimonides that fools and sinners are easily killed for the benefit of others. Human life, created in the image of God, is sacred, and it is forbidden to shed innocent blood, even if they are fools or sinners, except through proper judgment and law. The Torah's commandment of "you shall not let any soul live" is based on justice, and the land became defiled, and I visited its iniquity upon it, and the land vomited out its inhabitants. However, there are statements in the words of our sages that, on the surface, seem to agree with Maimonides' view, but our great rabbis explain that these statements were only said regarding an ignoramus who pursues his fellow to kill him, and the pursued cannot save himself except by killing the pursuer. The Geonim added that these statements are not halakhic rulings regarding what is forbidden or permitted, which would require a legal decision, but rather words of moral guidance, etiquette, and a description of the shortcomings of the ignoramus, mere exaggeration. If these were actual legal rulings to be relied upon literally, then those students you mentioned would deserve to be slaughtered on Yom Kippur. And if the property of an ignoramus were permitted, then the property of these students, who are also considered ignoramuses, would be permitted as well, and those who served as students of sages would not say such things. The statement of our sages, "the best of the Canaanites kill," was said in a time of war, and for any ordinary Gentile, even idol worshippers, we neither raise nor lower. Only those who are harmful in their existence, such as heretics and informers, are lowered and not raised. See Shulchan Aruch, Yoreh De'ah, section 158, and the Shach there. as well as Choshen Mishpat, section 425, paragraph 5. In these words, I have gathered and compiled the words of our ancient sages who investigated the matter of truth, and I have explained their words to the best of my limited understanding. Yet, this grave question has not yet been fully resolved, and we must return to the primary sources in the words of the Torah, the prophets, and the sages, masters of Agadah, whose words contain and conceal all these inquiries and their solutions in the language of the wise, which is understood in its simple meaning by all who read it and in its depth, by all who examine with a discerning eye, understanding heart, as Maimonides wrote in his introduction to the Guide for the Perplexed. As for the question, why is it that the righteous sometimes suffer and the wicked prosper? Maimonides concludes, based on the book of Job, that the aim is to show that our knowledge does not reach to comprehend the exact timing of the emergence of earthly beings, nor the formation of their natural powers. So how can we expect that God's governance and providence in his world would resemble our own governance and providence? Nevertheless, it is fitting to believe that nothing is hidden from him, as Elijah says, for his eyes are upon the ways of man, and he sees all his steps. There is no darkness nor shadow of death where the workers of iniquity may hide themselves. However, his providence is not like ours, nor is his governance of his creations like our governance. When a person understands this, every circumstance becomes easier for him, and these circumstances will not cause him doubt, but will increase his love. Rabbeinu Baya, too, addressed this question and resolved it in his characteristic straightforward language, saying all beings in this world, by their essence and circumstance, have a set limit, and nothing can be added or subtracted from what the Creator decreed regarding their quantity, quality, and place. Nothing is increased beyond what was decreed to be little, nor diminished from what was decreed to be much, nor delayed when it was decreed to be early, nor brought forward when it was decreed to be late. Whatever happens in this way is the decree that was established at the beginning of knowledge. However, for all the decrees known to the Creator, there are many causes, and to those causes, other causes. One who does not understand the matters of the world might think that a new cause necessitates a change of circumstances, but the cause is too weak and insignificant to bring about a change or transformation in their essence, etc. The soul's preoccupation with hastening what God has delayed, delaying what he has hastened, increasing what he has diminished, or diminishing what he has increased in worldly possessions without relating it to the fulfillment of his commandments and acceptance of his Torah, is a weakness in the recognition of the truth of his knowledge and a folly in understanding the goodness of his governance. After establishing this fundamental principle, that all beings in changes, successes, and disasters are decrees of divine providence in the cycle of their essence, Rabbeinu Baya faced the question, why does the righteous suffer? He wrote, if one asks, we see some righteous people who only manage to earn their livelihood after much toil and effort, while many transgressors live in tranquility and enjoy pleasant lives, etc. The prophet left the answer to this unexplained, because the reason for each righteous person's trial and each wicked person's prosperity in this world is unique to each case. Therefore, he hinted at this by saying, the hidden things belong to the Lord, our God, but the revealed things are for us and our children. And Scripture says, the rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are justice. Even so, I have seen fit to clarify this matter somewhat, and I say, sometimes the reason a righteous person is denied an easy livelihood and must toil is because of a prior sin, etc. Sometimes it is to be compensated in the world to come, as hinted, to do you good in your end. Sometimes it is to show his endurance and good attitude in serving the Creator, so that others may learn from him. Sometimes it is for the sake of the wicked people of his generation, and the Creator tests him with poverty and many illnesses to show his piety and service to God despite these hardships. Sometimes it is because he does not act zealously for God's honor by judging the people of his generation. But the good that God bestows on the wicked may be because of some previous merit, as it says, and he repays his enemies to their face, to destroy them, which the early commentators interpret to mean that God pays the wicked in this life for the good they have done, in order to destroy them. And sometimes it is Hegyonei Uziel, gate 5, 1143, with navigation. In the manner of a deposit entrusted to him until he should have a righteous son, as it is said, he prepares, but the righteous will wear it. And it is possible that the great cause among causes for his death and his misfortune is, as it is written, riches kept by their owner to his harm. And it is possible that it is due to the Creator's great patience, blessed be he, until the person repents and becomes worthy, as you know from the story of Manasseh. Sometimes it is due to the merit of the Father, and it is appropriate to bestow goodness upon his son for his sake, etc. And sometimes it is to test people of deceit and evil intentions, for when they see this, they hasten to abandon the service of the Creator and seek favor with the wicked and learn from their ways. And thus, the truly devoted person is distinguished for God, and the Lord sees the one who remains faithful in his service despite suffering when the wicked rule and shame him, and he receives reward from the Creator, blessed be he, for this, as you know from the stories of Elijah with Jezebel and Jeremiah with the kings of his generation. Go and see in the commentary or Bahir, who, with remarkable and clear expertise, cited many sayings of our holy sages, masters of the higher and holy secrets, to clarify these obscure and sealed matters. We are not permitted to look deeply into them, but only to glimpse through the cracks with awe, sacred fear, and purity. It is worth noting that our sages divided this question into two branches related to the general question, as they said, when Moses sought to know God's glorious and awesome ways, whose foundation is truth and just judgment, as it is said, the rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are justice. A God of faithfulness and without iniquity, righteous and upright is he, and as it is said, the judgments of the Lord are true, righteous altogether, to teach you that even judgments that seem contradictory are true at their core and just in their verdict. But this knowledge is that of the higher thought, as it is said, for I know the thoughts that I think toward you. What is this like? To a book of judgments, which is the judicial thought, and the verdict is entrusted to the discretion of the judge, who relies on the book of judgments. This is the extension of divine thought into action, and this is the complete secret that no person can reach, and even Moses sought to know, but was not informed. However, these matters refer only to the general question of the governance of the world, which is called the ways of the Lord, about which Moses asked, "Show me now your ways." But regarding the second branch of this question, why a righteous person prospers and another suffers, even though it is also an obscure question, we have been permitted by divine authority to explain it according to our understanding, but not with definitive conclusions, rather in a manner that makes it understandable. As we sit and contemplate the words of our sages, wrapped in awe and trembling, with our hearts and eyes uplifted, we pray, "Open my eyes, that I may behold wondrous things from your Torah, and prepare my heart to fear your name and to know your righteous judgment."